Hello, everyone, friends, welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and envies, to waruideshou's podcast, patron exclusive for now, timed exclusive, as they say in the video game biz. It is Deshou the Third. Our series of our first core is complete of Deshou the Third. The first time we have covered 3 shows in a season, and it's gone really well, and I'm extremely happy that we've gotten to do this, because we've gotten to cover Rakugo, and it's just been such a good experience. I am the Subtle Doctor, as you know, your host, a man who just learned that there is such a thing as a minmi. That's a real item that was once in this world, no longer. The laughing man to your right is
the laughing man.
yes.
I just thought I'd become one of those deaf mutes.
It's okay. Very good, very good. You may have noticed that Shadon is not here. The astute among you will see that Shadon was otherwise occupied today, and so graciously our friend and yours has agreed to come and be a guest host. You'll know him from Oh No Anime, podcaster, video creator, entertainer, DJ, sage of all things J music. It is Marc. Welcome, Marc.
Hello. It is I'm here. Thank you so much for having me back once again, Subs. It is always a joy to be on, a joy to be talking with you, especially about this, one of the greatest anime ever made. And that is my opening statement.
Boom! Gauntlet thrown down.
Subtlety be damned.
Subtlety be damned. My namesake, screw it. Don't care.
Exactly.
So, Marc, do you want to tell everybody at the top where they can find your work? And we'll remind them again at the bottom. But,
Yeah, sure. So you could just go to our website. It's onoanime.moe or onoanime.com, whichever one is better for you. If you're embarrassed to type in a .moe address into your address bar, I don't blame you. But yeah, that'll just have all of our links. But yeah, we're on YouTube and Twitter and everything. You can find everything that we do there. That's basically it.
Cool. Hello to folks in chat. See Gogo Atomic Robot and Grizz, among others. Someone is asking, do you like the Flip Flappers OP? This may seem random. It has it has been a object of discussion.
I believe that is a song by the artist Zach, if I am if I am correct, right?
Is that true? That's incredible.
Well, it's Z-A. I don't know if it's Zach or if her name is pronounced Zach Q.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure it's just Zach. But yeah, it's a good song. It's among the better Zach songs. I like the sort of drum and bass feel that it has to it. So yeah, the Flip Flappers OP is good. I like it officially. You could put that down, mark that down on the record. Put me in the Excel spreadsheet that you have running of people that like and don't like the, it's like
there's a Q. Z-A-Q.
Yeah, Z-A-Q.
Amazing.
I was gonna say it's like that scene in Happy Gilmore where Steve Buscemi is like crossing off a list of people that he's like going to kill from his childhood. Just like, if you want to just cross me off the list of people to kill that don't like the Flappers opening, then just go ahead and do that.
You gotta
Mark Me Down is officially liking it, and Flip Flappers is a great show.
This is a Happy Gilmore reference on the podcast. That's one.
Yeah, well,
that I didn't expect.
Let nobody say that I am not an intellectual.
Right? You're not an Adam Sandler lover. That's how we sort the good from the bad people. Do you love the early period Adam Sandler movies?
Listen, I'm a hockey fan. I'm a fan of the Tampa Bay Lightning, Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning, and I love all my hockey movies. I love Happy Gilmore. I love Slapshot.
Wait a minute. That's a hockey. I thought that was a golf movie.
It is a golf movie, but he is a hockey player in the movie so I count it. God damn it.
Fair. I mean, with the lack of representation in hockey film,
yeah, it's
you
either
got to take what you
Slapshot or Sean William Scott's Goon or Miracle. Those are your three.
But you're leaving out like the seminal hockey movies, like the formative ones for, I feel like, most people of our generation. The Mighty Ducks 1 through 3.
Right, Mighty Ducks. Right.
Flying V.
You wouldn't classify those. You wouldn't classify those as aggressive inline movies.
I mean, they're no Brink.
Fruit booting movies.
They're no Brink. So do you know the movie,
Brink,
the Disney Channel original movie Brink?
Oh, I am intimately familiar with Brink. First time I ever heard the term "fam" used in my life was in that movie.
Wow, the genealogy, not the genealogy, the etymology of fam.
Yeah, I didn't know you could. Fam can be traced all the way back to Brink.
Wow, dude, that movie came out at a big that was a big moment for me. It should fucking did, dude. Brink rule. The young people in our audience are just like, what the hell? But like, listen, when I was like, God,
listen, if you don't know Brink, if you don't know Halloween Town, if you don't know Smart House, if you don't know Xenon Girl of the 31st Century, or whatever the hell that movie was called, then you're dead to me.
Well,
Luck of the Irish.
Well, I'm not going to go that far, but I will say.
No, listen, I understand you have to maintain a semblance of neutrality on this being your show, but I am bound by no such laws.
Like, I remember after I saw Brink, like, I was at that impressionable age where I was like, yo, I want to be a skater and I want to dress like these dudes and talk like these dudes and everything. And I was like, Mom, take me shopping, Mom.
That happened to me after watching Brink, and it also happened to me after playing the first Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. I was like, I am going to be a skateboarder. That is my life. And it did not happen.
Spoilers.
It did not work out.
So did you just get hurt? Like, did you just say this is not for me? Like, did you?
Dude, I didn't even get that far. I was so scared of getting hurt that I rarely did anything of note. I think I dropped in on a half pipe like once or twice, and that was about it.
Yeah.
But I did have I had a birdhouse skateboard, like a fairly good. I got it for Christmas, and I rode it. It was a nice skateboard. I'm kind of bummed that I still don't have it, but I did it. I went to skate parks. I tried, but getting hurt is not a thing that I particularly enjoy.
It sucks.
So it did not last very long for me.
Me neither. Yeah, I hurt my wrists, and that was it. And that was just trying inline. Like, I also tried to skateboard, and it was just embarrassing. I didn't get hurt, thankfully, but it was real. Not a good look for me.
Yeah, embarrassing is a very good way to describe my short skateboarding career.
But I still
better at it in a video game.
Yeah. Do you have the remake?
The new one?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I played the shit out of it. Yeah. I put probably 15 hours into that thing and just destroyed it. Yeah.
I want to play it so bad because it's been so long since I've played those.
It's so good. Just coming into that opening menu with Goldfinger Superman just blasting. Oh, the opening cinematic with Guerrilla Radio by Rage Against the Machine. Oh my God. I've never been more hyped in my entire life.
Man.
Yeah. It's a good game. It's a really good game.
It's just weaponized. Our nostalgia has been effectively weaponized against us.
I know, but it's like good.
Mm-hmm.
Like the rare good nostalgia is like, oh no, this is a cool thing that is not just like me looking back on this thing with rose tinted glasses. This is like me being reminded that, oh shit, this is good and always was good.
That's right.
And was like a super cool lightning in a bottle type thing. So anyways,
speaking of lightning in a bottle, my friend, we're going to talk about some animated lightning in a bottle today.
Oh yeah.
You're getting compliments on your bookcase and how well you take care of your books, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah,
It's almost all manga and comic books.
Which I guess is
manga, comic books, and Warhammer 40,000 novels. And so I'm sure somebody out there will appreciate that.
I mean, I see you too are a man of taste, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're like when they have mine to compare to, which my work bookshelf is just kind of a shitty thing that was at the office, and like the books themselves, like I need to get like
but
some
I see
kind of things
Vinland
to like
Saga up there.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, yes,
we're matching. You could see Vinland Saga somewhere in the back there too. So
yeah, I mean, Cross Game is there in its entirety.
Yeah.
But I think it's just because like some of them are like kind of tilted, and Emily is just saying you probably could like stand to like straighten it up a little bit for the life of the books.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that gives it a certain amount of rustic charm.
Well,
yeah.
Speaking of rustic charm, I don't actually know if I'd characterize the show that way. I'm just trying to say. No, look.
There's some rustic moments
there are
happening in these episodes.
So, Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju. We have watched the final 4 episodes 10 through 13, to discuss today, and we're gonna give our thoughts on the show as a whole, as we like to do when these things end. We don't have any patron questions that I saw beforehand. Chat, let me know though if there are some. Since you were all also in the Discord. And then I'll grab my phone and find them if that's the case. But before we get into talking about the episodes, I'm going to play a game that I really, really do like to play, which is, Doc reads names to Marc, and Marc talks about them because Marc is very knowledgeable.
I have to pull up the A&N Wikipedia because I did not do my research on these, but all right, please. So
there's just a couple. This won't be super long because all the screenwriters we have talked about in previous episodes. So we're just going to shout out the episode directors now. And then, of course, if you have any additional people in the animation side of things or musically you'd like to shout out, feel free.
I have to preface, this is going to be, I did take a bit of a different tack with this than I did with B&A, mostly because I feel like there's a lot more about what's happening in the show to talk about this time around than the production. I actually don't necessarily think the production of this show is the most interesting thing about it, which unfortunately and fortunately is a lot of the case with a lot of trigger shows. So
fair.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm pretty intimately familiar with Mamoru Hatakeyama, the director, the overall director, who obviously Shaft veteran. But yeah, I'm going to be looking at these names as you call them out, and I will let you know if I see anything interesting here, because I have not actually looked at these maybe ever. So,
well, we're going to put you on the spot, and it'll be a game of spontaneity. The director of, let's see, we started on episode 10, so Chiako Nakamura was the director of episode 10. Anything from about their career or their CV jumping out at you that's noteworthy?
Not really. Looks like they are pretty much just an episode director and storyboarder. And I'm not really seeing where they work either. But I mean, this is definitely not the first time that they've directed an episode of something. It was not the last time that they directed episode of something too. But
A mercenary.
looks like episode director is about as high on the anime production rung as they have ever risen. But yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about it other than that.
Well, let me ask you about a particular role. Sometimes these things come up where I see a credit and I think, because I don't know enough about this industry.
Right.
That I'm thinking, what does this sort of job consist in, right? So, an anime that immediately jumps out at me on this list is the Getter Robo Armageddon OAV, which is an OAV that is just so near and dear to my heart. I adore Getter Robo Armageddon, and Nakamura is credited with Color Check.
Color Check, right. So, Getter Robo Armageddon. Let me see what year that's from. That is
the 90s.
The 90s. So that would have been
very late 90s, I think, right?
Yeah, that would have been right on the cusp of when everybody was transitioning from using cells in animation cells to digital. I think one of the last I actually want to say that 1999 was the last. This is from 1998. So this is probably cell animation, if I had to guess. And Color Check is, I honestly think, probably a mostly what's the word I'm looking for? Like defunct position now.
Right.
Because when the original key animation is drawn on a sheet that's called a Genga. And then that Genga is passed to people that would then essentially use it as a tracing guide to trace lines onto and then paint colors onto a animation cell, which is a piece of celluloid. It's like a clear plastic sheet that would then get put in a stack and pictures would get taken of it. And then it would get put on a film strip. And that's how you create animation originally. That's not how it's done anymore. It's all, computer stuff nowadays. But the key animation guides, I don't know if anybody's ever seen a Genga before. Actually, I have some on my wall back there, but Genga essentially is just your lines. And then within the lines, a lot of time you'll see like numbers and notes, and those numbers and notes refer to specific colors. So Color Check, I'm by no means an expert, but I'm pretty sure Color Check is just somebody who's making sure that colors are consistent on a series of cells, like frame to frame, especially if multiple people are painting different cells and then they're all coming together into the same animation sequence. Color Check, I'm pretty sure, is just somebody who is going over the cells, as they're coming in and just making sure that the colors are consistent so that when they go through the camera, it looks like an actual piece of animation and not just like this weird choppy mess, which is, how it would look if, the colors were not consistent enough, at least, so
that's
a lot of this is detailed in Azoken, actually, because they go really, really far into a shocking amount into cell animation in that show.
They do. Yes.
Which I was really happy to see.
Yeah, that was it was fascinating, by the way. And then just definitely remember hearing about some of these things in that show. But you know who could have used a Color Check?
Who is that?
The people making the American Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon.
Oh Christ! Yeah.
I don't know if you may or may not remember this, but frequently the colors of the masks would be totally swapped around.
Yeah. Not surprising.
I remember even as a child, I was like, what? This is wrong. So we've already talked about one of the directors of episode 11. It looks like it had two, Naoki Murata, but we have not talked about Masahiro Sonoda. So let me pull up Sonoda here. Anything I should know about Sonoda?
So Sonoda is pretty interesting because he's not only he's got some screenwriting credits as well.
Interesting.
Specifically on the F-Zero anime.
Man,
which
haven't
is
seen
pretty
it.
wild.
Is it wild?
He's well, it's pretty wild that seems to be one of his only
Oh, I see.
script writing credits is on F-Zero Falcon Densetsu, or the Legend of the Falcon, which obviously is concerning
The Captain Falcon origin story.
backstory. Yeah,
Hell yeah.
from 2003. I don't necessarily think that any of the F-Zero anime were particularly well received, but boy, I sure liked them. Because I'm a big F-Zero fan.
Dude, F-Zero fucking rules.
Yeah, F-Zero kicks ass.
It's great.
And they should make a new one.
It was a happy moment when my children, through the Nintendo Switch Online, were playing F-Zero. Spontaneously. I walked in on them. It's just like, pick the red one, guys. He's the best. Do I see the? I noticed that Sonoda is the series director of an incredibly infamous anime called Dance in the Vampire Bund.
Yeah.
That was controversial when it came out.
Yes, it is, and that manga is still inexplicably sold in just about every Barnes and Noble for some reason. I don't know why I continuously see it there. Maybe it's not that it's still sold, but that nobody buys it.
Right, let's hope. It's just, they refuse to get rid of it.
Yeah.
No one wants to go home with it. They're like, guys, someone please take this. No.
Yeah. Oh my God. He did also direct some episodes of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, though.
Yep. Excellent show.
Yeah. I think that, he directs the episode where they finally find out what exactly they need to put into the Philosopher's Stone to make it work, which I will not spoil that for you if you haven't seen it, but that's a fantastic show. Go watch it.
Yeah, that show is great.
Go watch Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, an incredibly brave take from me.
You're really putting yourself out there.
Yeah, I'm really putting my head on the chopping block with that one.
But so we got Sonoda directing 4 episodes of. I'm going to mention this one because it's sort of like in that, like, to use a really crude kind of scale here. It's sort of a B tier anime, I think, but I enjoyed it for what it was, and watched the fan subs when they came out, and remember enjoying Scrapped Princess.
I've never seen that one.
4 episodes, including it's either the penultimate episode or the finale that Sonoda directed here. And it is I remember Bandai brought it over to America. And maybe it's one of those things that Funimation picked up after Bandai kind of got out of the game. But it's really, I thought it had an interesting story concept. It's one of those where the main character, the Scrapped Princess, there's a prophecy she's going to bring doom, and so people are trying to get rid of her, but she's got a couple of really capable and awesome bodyguards. And then, minor spoilers, at episode 4, it turns out like they're in the Matrix instead of in a medieval world. So it's
holy shit.
Yeah, it's kind of wild.
So it's a backdoor isekai kind of.
A little bit. And at one point, she gets amnesia for multiple episodes, and it was incredibly frustrating. One of my least favorite tropes is I'd much rather a character begin with amnesia than get it in the middle of the show and then it lasts for several weeks. It was brutal. So, Akame ga Kill on here. That's a show that
a show that exists.
I like, despite it understanding it's not objectively good. I
don't blame you for that. That's he's directed a considerable amount of episodes for some very beloved shows. Welcome to the NHK, Shirakuma Cafe. There's one other here that I saw on here that people really like, and I cannot. Natsume Yujincho. People love that show, and he's directed a lot.
Oh wow, I didn't see that. That's cool. Yeah. People love Natsume.
Too. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
the Book of Friends.
Deservedly so, from what I've heard.
Yeah, I've only seen the first season, but I liked it quite a bit. Okay, so transitioning to the director of episode 12, Tatsuya Abe. Name ring a bell or no? Key animator, it appears.
Name does not ring a bell.
Lots of animation directing and key animation credits, with the occasional episode director credit. For things.
He looks like mostly a key animator, so I would guess hell of a thing to cut your teeth on this 12th episode. But yeah, mostly key animator. Looks like this is probably one of his first. Definitely not one of his first, but definitely a rare episode director position for him. But it's extremely hard to judge somebody's career solely by key animation credits without having Sakuga Boru loaded up and just flipping through them. But yeah.
Ooh, storyboarded a couple episodes of Elfen Lied, huh? well. That's hey, you got to pay the bill somehow, I guess.
Listen, people like that show inexplicably.
Oh man, and Quasar of Stigmata. Oh boy, I'm finding Queen's Blade. I'm finding the rough ones,
dude.
But there's also good stuff. There's you got your Psychopaths, you got your Madoka Magica, you've got your well, this isn't exactly good, but I feel like at the time it was well received. Vendread. I don't think if you go back and watch Vendread today, you'd be like, "This is good."
Probably not.
No. It's at the time.
Yeah.
Time Bokon 24 just directed an episode. It was an animation director, I should say, of the first episode, and that show is
first episode
bonkers
of the reboot of Time Bokon.
I think 24 is the new one, right?
Yeah, I think it would be.
Yeah, vintage 16.
We covered that when it came out on our show, and I was not the one watching it.
That show is nuts.
Patrick has much more patience for long-running children's shows than I do. Longest I ever made it was Tribe Cool Crew, but
well, that's an exceptional show. Can I just say? I love Tribe Cool Crew so much.
Yeah, it's terrible, but I love it.
Is it? I can't really see through my enjoyment to.
No, it's got some good shit in it, but there's absolutely no way I could have sat through I don't know however many episodes there were, 56 or whatever. But it's got some moments.
They're really 56. I don't think I finished it.
Well, it's like one of those shows that Toho was testing out all of their 3D motion capture dance technology on, that they went on to use with is it Prepara? Is that Toho's thing?
I don't know.
I don't know. It's either Prepara or ICOTS. I can't remember which one, but whatever their big children's idol property is, they ended up using a bunch of really specific 3D motion capture technology on for all the dancing scenes and stuff. Because idols.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot of good money. It's true. We got a lot of good music out of that experiment, though. And is it all available?
Tribe Cool Crew had some good music in it.
Is the soundtrack fully available? Because the last time I looked, which was a while ago, but I couldn't find it.
The only way that I think that you would be able to find the Tribe Cool Crew soundtrack is if you lived in Japan and went to an otaku music store or something like that, was selling the CD or whatever. Because every anime gets an official soundtrack or whatever release, but we only get whatever people decide to upload, and because there's that shit never gets officially released over here. So
well, more of it's
only
coming to Spotify,
very rare
but
occasions does it.
At least there's I feel like it's more likely that stuff like that will come to Spotify now than it was whenever Tribe Cool Crew came
there
out.
are a lot of anime soundtracks and anime openings and endings that are making their way onto Spotify these days, and that seems to be just about the only place that you can listen to them officially, other than YouTube, which has a shocking amount of officially uploaded anime music. But ever since that, what is that anime music streaming service that they tried out over here for a while? I can't even remember what it was called.
I don't even know if I know about this.
There was a so it was called, oh god, I can't even remember what it was called, but essentially it was like Avex and like a bunch of different other like, you know, record companies like King Records and all them. Like essentially it's very successful in Japan. They have like a like dedicated like Anisong streaming service that just has like, you know, all the openings, all the endings from like all these different like record labels. And they tried it over here and then closed it. I want to say like almost a year later. like
Sad.
like not even a year later.
Very
I can't remember
sad.
what it's called, but yeah, it was, maybe somebody in chat knows or remembers it, but I tried it. It had some good stuff on it, but then they never put anything else on it. It was like, you know, they had like about, you know, maybe a couple thousand songs, and that was about it. So anyways,
what could have been? The closest thing I remember to that is I don't know if you had a Suncoast video near you when it was still a thing.
I'm sorry, it was called Aniuta.
Okay.
Aniuta, the Anisong streaming service. There you
go. Rest in peace, Annie.
I did not have a Suncoast video. I think the only thing that we had was like FYE or like whatever the like Sam Goody, whatever the like mall equivalent, like music / video store.
So Suncoast is sort of what was like my supplier for sort of the early anime year, like forming that habit. And right before they kind of closed down, once DVD had taken off and they were really just had a shocking amount of anime to buy, they also started like acquiring t-shirts and soundtracks. And I just remember being very surprised at all the CD soundtracks they were selling for like just a bunch of different anime.
That would have been like right before the first anime bubble burst here, and all the, you know, licensing companies like ADV and Bandai and all them would have shut down.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. It's true. It was wild times that
I was never really into like buying any of that stuff on like DVD or whatever back then, mostly because I was like getting all of it from like Toonami or whatever already. But I feel like my friend would come over like every week for 6 months, and he would like bring over like a new anime that he had picked up from like FYE or Sam Goody from the mall or something, and we were like watching like Fully Cooley and Planetes and all these like amazing formative shows that he just got from somewhere. I'm guessing somewhere in the mall, because that's where everybody got anime stuff back then. But at least in my area,
the mall. But let's transition away from old guy stuff.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, so we've talked about the creators, a few of the directors here. I don't see the 13th episode director credited. I'm assuming. I would bet that it is Takeyama.
Probably. That's usually how it goes.
So, and we've already talked about him, so we don't need to. I don't need to go into any more detail about him, unless there's anything that you wanted to say. But we kind of looked at the wiki page and everything, and
yeah, he's a master. What else can I say that hasn't already been said somewhere else?
Well, it's so evident from this show here. I mean, we spend, we've spent the last 3 pods like a not insignificant chunk of time just like pointing out different scenes and talking about how like, oh my God, the direction is so good. And so, but like, so I don't think that we have any patron questions, so we can just start talking about the show.
Okay.
So I will let you kick it off. It's like, so let's talk about this chunk of episodes first, and then we'll get into our overall impression. So thoughts on these? Do you want to look at these as a whole? Do you want to go episode by episode? Do you want to just talk about moments? How do you want to approach this?
Well, my notes are separated episode by episode, so I guess that would probably be
all right,
productive. But I was saying to you before we started this is a hell of a. I didn't realize when you asked me earlier in the week if I wanted to do this that this was a hell of a series of episodes.
It was those
to come on
episodes.
for. My God, it has some of probably the most amount of my favorite moments in this show out of any stretch of episodes through the whole run. But yeah, it's pretty incredible. Just a demonstration of just about everything this show is capable of giving you as a viewer all at once, even outside of the just stupidly good scenes of Rakugo performance. I was posting about this on Twitter last night, but like, the main voice cast in this show does not get recognized for their achievements in this show as much as they should. I mean, I'm definitely one to crow about voice actors on occasion. But this is just a entirely different level of performance. I think that these actors are like only these actors would have been capable of giving. I was talking with this about a friend last night who is just as big of a fan of the show as I am, and even bigger like Seiyu person than I am. I think there's something to be said in this case for experience and age, and the fact that almost every single person except for Yu Kobayashi, who voices Konatsu, on this main voice cast, Akira Ishida, Koichi Yamadera, Megumi Hayashibara. I mean, the absolute triumvirate of literally some of the best voice acting talent for the past 20 years, and some of the most in demand. But then you also have I'm gonna misremember his name. Hold on. Tomokazu Seki, who plays Yotaro, who we only see in the first episode of this season and the last episode of the season. But my God, hell of a performance that he gives in the 13th episode, and he'll obviously come back in the latter half. But just basically everybody on the main cast that's not Yu Kobayashi, who's a little bit younger. I really think that the fact that they're all older, they're voicing older characters now in their careers. Megumi Hayashibara is basically retired. This is one of the last shows that she ever did. Bound to
the Queen.
It's exactly. I mean, literally the most prolific female voice actress in history. I think she's done more roles than anybody else. And yeah, there's really just something to be said for their age and breadth of experience and just pure dramatic chops that they were able to not only play these characters, but also play these characters playing characters and like multiple characters at the same time, telling these amazing stories. I mean, obviously Rakugo is as much a physical performance as it is a voice performance, but just the idea of the fact of them playing characters that then do performances of their own in the world of this show, and having it not just be them telling a story, but them doing an art that is, hundreds of years old and is highly venerated as, one of the national, arts of Japan by now. Even though in the show it's portrayed as this sort of like down and dirty sort of, entertainers cast and not a very respectable job in certain aspects. It certainly is in modern day Japan. And, yeah, it's just really, I can't say enough good about the voice performances in the show. And I'm sure you guys have touched on that before, but I just wanted to lead off by saying that because it's just, I think, especially with those main three, Akira Ishida, Koichi Yamadera, and Megumi Hayashibara, in these last few episodes, you see them just at their absolute peak of their powers. And I just don't have enough good, I don't have enough words to express how good they are. Because it's just really crazy.
Yeah, I mean, pardon me. Yeah, I was going to do exactly what you did when we started to talk about the show as a whole. But this is as good a time as any, honestly, to do it because, as you say, it just, like, it's on another level, unparalleled almost work by the three principal leads. And, I mean, honestly, I never want to see the show dubbed. Because, as you say, like, how these actors, like, really embody these roles is so special. Yeah. I mean, Hayashibara is as seductive as she's ever sounded in this role as, this damaged woman. And
Yeah.
like Ishida as Kiku, I mean, how do I say what I'm feeling? Because how do I articulate? Because there's just so much.
Just the fact that he's able to voice this character over like almost 50 years of his lifespan is truly incredible. Like the dramatic and vocal range that he has in voicing him is just, it's unparalleled.
and the feelings that he brings through, and just hearing the voice, like things that aren't even in the translation, right? That are not like the words that he's saying, just the sort of the evocative nature of the performance.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear kind of the hardness in his, like how life has kind of hardened his heart, but you also hear, you can hear in his voice like his kind of conflicted feelings about loneliness, how like he wants solitude, but also comes under, like he sort of has this ache for something more, and it all just comes through so well.
Well, and that's sort of what we see in this episode, is him starting to make peace with this realization that, it's funny because this is an incredible developmental arc for Kiku's character in these 4 episodes, because in episode 10 we see him take the stage before the 7th Yakumo at the I'm sorry, not before the 7th Yakumo. We see the 7th Yakumo die, and then he takes the stage for his first show, like literally like the next day, as he hasn't taken the name, but it's like, he's essentially, his first show as the successor. And he
what balls
he literally says, like, this is what it feels like, this true silence, this is what it feels like. I'm finally truly alone.
Yeah.
Like as if he's been waiting for it this entire time. So he starts this 4 episode arc like that, and then goes through, this visit to the countryside and seeing his brother and having that sort of cold facade melted bit by bit to where he realizes, like, shit, I kind of do want family. I want peace. I want like everything to be okay and to be surrounded by people that I love. And then everything goes wrong, and he becomes like this even more, miserable, hardened sort of, person that, all in the span of like 4 episodes, we see this happen. It's a pretty incredible developmental arc. And the fact that it doesn't feel rushed is a real tribute to this show's just, immaculate pacing in certain sections. But the 7th Yakumo has a really great quote that I feel like resonates throughout this entire show, especially for Kiko and his sort of reluctance in accepting his place as the 7th Yakumo's successor, and the fact that he like doesn't really think that he's good enough and doesn't really want that responsibility. When the 7th Yakumo is on his deathbed, he said, "I had no idea back then," referencing his story on his deathbed about the original Sukeroku, and essentially like essentially dicking him over and like taking his rightful position, even though he knew that he wasn't as good as Rakugo as Sukeroku, because he was, jealous of his father's approval. He says, quote, "I had no idea back then how much suffering this name would cause." And like, it's such a perfect encapsulation of like everything that happens after that moment between then and the end of that, of the season, because it's like, Kikyo is essentially just constantly worrying about like all this pressure from the association to take the name, and goes from pressure to his own personal pressure from like, oh my god, I have to go to the countryside and get Sukeroku back and have him take the Yakumo name and all that, to everything going wrong and him essentially being forced to take it himself. It's pretty crazy. Like it's a really great pinnacle moment that I feel like is pretty easy to miss.
Yeah.
But, so
yeah, man.
Like, I don't know. I don't really know where to go from there, but
well, I mean, it's passing down expectations, and I guess, I mean, really power too, in a way, right? Because that name is a powerful name, like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they really are. It really can be like a burden, and can divide people, and will bring. I mean, I think that's that rings very true. And I mean, like, that was a very humanizing moment for this character who, like, up to that point, like, I mean, I didn't like hate or anything. Like, he had a couple of other cool moments, like when he kind of pulled out the scrolls that time to let the other people in his line sort of celebrate promotion of his two young sons. Like, that kind of stuff was really nice and sweet. But this was really like, you know, it was nice to, I guess, see like he had these regrets, because he had been kind of a character who
He's
was
pretty
very
monolithic
like set, yes, monolithic,
point.
like, and really set in his ways, and seemed like, you know, this is fucking it, Jack. Like, you got to listen to me. But to, like, I mean, his whole life, he said he never knew a moment's peace after he you know, stole the inheritance that would have gone to Sukeroku. And so did you feel like, this is not exactly a criticism, but watching it the second time, the fact that the Sukeroku who the seventh Yakumo kind of displaced was the old man who trained the current day Sukeroku, and kind of he got brought back in his orbit. Did you feel it was a little too coincidental, or do you kind of just see it as like, this is a storytelling device about, like, you know, karma and regrets coming to catch up with you and things?
I think if that was the only case of karmic redemption, or the only case of karmic retribution in this show, that it would have felt forced. But karmic retribution is such a central theme of this show, especially like the idea of like generational trauma being experienced or being caused in one generation, coming home to roost in the following generation in some way. I think it's, you know, it is a pretty convenient storytelling device, but I also think that it's like, there is no more perfect, you know, illustration in this half of the show of karmic retribution than this man who, you know, caused. I mean, granted, you know, I'm kind of split on his decision, because it's like, on the one hand, like, you know, he screwed somebody over and like ruined their life essentially. But on the other hand, I don't know if I can necessarily blame him for that decision, because A, he was a child. B, there was like this interloper in his home that wasn't related to him, that was like essentially stealing his father's affection simply because he was better at Rakugo than him, which is like such a stupid, like, you know, such a stupid measure of a child's worth.
Well, I will say,
part of me,
I will say this is, oh no, sorry, no, I'm so sorry to cut you off. I should not have, but
no, you're good.
Just gonna say that that we are hearing it from this guy's perspective, the perspective of the child,
right? The unreliable narrator.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the father sort of like didn't love him any less, right? But this was just the way that seventh Yakumo saw it.
Yeah, that's certainly possible, though.
I can believe it, though.
Yeah, I tend to be skeptical of that, only because like Rakugo is literally these people's entire lives.
Yeah.
And I would not be surprised if this guy's severe Japanese father from the late 1800s or whatever was like, you know, measuring his son's entire worth based on his like martial prowess or whatever, which is like, you know,
this is very
so fair. It fits within the culture is all I'm saying.
Yeah,
but,
this is super fair.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with you that it is pretty convenient, but it didn't take me out of it, because I do feel like that it is a pretty poetic illustration of karmic retribution, and is in line with this show's overall theme of like generational trauma, and like, you know, just a general awareness of like the radiation of consequences from like a decision being made in time, like down the line of, I mean, it literally is called descending stories.
Sure.
Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju. So it's like, you know, that's all part of this show's theme of karmic retribution and you know, that sort of generational decision making and stuff like that. So
you referenced this in a comment that you made a little while ago, and I meant to bring it up, but at the beginning of the episode, when Kiku is refusing the little page boy kid who wants to be his apprentice,
right,
and he's basically like, you're too much of you're too respectable a young man to get caught up in this dirty profession. And then he calls it like fragile, like a soap bubble. I guess referring to its like instability. But like, so, what you said earlier was that in the Japan of today, Rakugo is kind of venerated as high traditional art and spoken of and thought of well. But like, I don't know. I think in certain circles, yes. I also think that Rakugo is a pretty intricate part of like the modern Japanese comedy scene. Like there are so many like Rakugo TV shows that are like ridiculously popular and that have been on for like 50 or 60 years at this point. It's crazy. But I do think that I do think that in certain circles, especially like dramatic Rakugo, I think is pretty highly venerated as like a national, storytelling art. As I mean, that would
in certain circles in Japan.
Yeah, and it would make sense. I think it seems like something that the society would want to treasure, and so I was just curious if you had any insight into why Rakugo and kind of the arts in general. We see different artists kind of acknowledge this sentiment throughout the show, be they musicians or whatever, performers. Like, if you are a person that works and performs at the theater, it's like you are involved in a sort of vulgar profession, and yet they're beloved by a lot of people, right? Like fans come to see them, and they don't. It's something that the older generation likes, who are typically like more conservative, and you wouldn't think they'd be doing something so vulgar and disgusting and indulging in. So like, I'm very curious what's kind of informing that idea that it's such a kind of a lowbrow or just to use the word that they use again, vulgar kind of enterprise. Like, what's going on there?
I think there's a couple different things that we have to keep in mind as to like where the people in this show, specifically this era of the show, are coming from. We're coming from an era where almost all sort of entertainment that we're seeing in the show has its roots in like cheap, lower class nighttime entertainment, nightlife, so to speak.
Okay.
Miyokichi is a geisha, and also a prostitute, even though those things are absolutely not mutually exclusive, even though they're often construed as being so in the West. But Rakugo, originated as sort of a cheap profession. It was a sort of a theaterization of just the common comedic and dramatic storytelling. It's almost as if if campfire stories became like a national, it's essentially what Rakugo is scary stories, comedic stories. These stories that have become Rakugo standards have existed for like 1,000 years in Japan, some of them, in certain forms or another. They were told, around the dinner table and around the campfire and around the barracks, during, off time in different scenarios. So it's just a I think the idea of Rakugo being seen as this sort of irreparable or sort of low life profession or fragile profession is just a vestige of how it was seen when it started. And I also think you have to understand that these people are all products of like World War II era Imperial Japan, where martial achievements and martial feats are worshipped above just about everything else, and like sacrificing yourself for the the emperor or the Japanese race would have been seen as like the ultimate positive thing to do with yourself. So I would imagine that nighttime entertainment and prostitution and all the things that are associated with it are not particularly looked upon very fondly by high society and by society at large. I would say that it's probably viewed mostly as a necessary evil to keep people in check during tough times, and that that sort of thing I think became more lax as the war ended and as Japan recovered. But I think those thoughts probably didn't go all the way away. And I think honestly, in that scene specifically, what you were talking about, I think I want to say that Kiku is more meaning the fact that he is a respectable boy like himself, doesn't want to get involved in a profession like this. I think he just means that he can see Rakugo's death on the horizon. It's
Right.
already, by this time in what seems to be about the early 1950s, Rakugo's already losing popularity now that like television and radio and all these forms of like mass communication and things are sort of taking over with younger people, and he could sort of see the writing on the wall, and he doesn't feel like this kid needs to be getting himself involved in this just based on what these preconceived notions of he has about the art, whereas it's a poor man's art. It's seen by some as disreputable, and worse, it's not a stable profession. You could wash out at any time. You could end up not being good at it. It's not for the faint of heart, and it's not for people that want to actually have a stable income, as we see through most of the time in the show. So
there's definitely that aspect to it of it has to become your life. And we can see like the negative lots of the negative kind of impact that can have on people,
for sure.
But yeah, no, thank you. That's really good context to provide for the kind of general attitude. I hadn't connected the dots in those ways, and that's just really informative. So thank you for sharing that. Like, that helps like add a layer to the show for me that I hadn't gotten before. So that's super cool. So
happy to help.
Of course, this is why we love to have you on. This is why we love to have you on. Any more about episode 10 that we want to talk about?
I just really want to again praise Akira Ishida's performance of Shinigami, which is the story that he performs right after the seventh Yakuma dies.
The balls to do the story of a Shinigami, man.
Unbelievable story to do the day after your master dies. It's truly incredible. Just the sheer, it perfectly represents Kiku's just completely detached personality at times, where he just does not give a fuck about anything. And it's rarely more evident than that. But his performance of it is also just imbued with such a darkness and such a, he's living the story as he tells it. And it's not the only time that he does it in the show. I think it's one of the most important stories that he tells. And it will come back in a big way in the later half. But it's hell of a performance. And I think I have like maybe 5 or 6 different points in my notes where I'm just gushing about Akira Ishida, because he is just delivering the performance of his life, which is really saying something, because he has been delivering the performance of his life for like 25 years at this point.
For sure. Yeah, that one, that was an incredible, like very like almost chilling at times. His like, voice.
The reactions of people in the crowd are literally like scared.
Mm-hmm.
They're scared of his performance, which is great. I always love seeing that.
I know. It's and that's one of the cool things about Konatsu becoming, like child Konatsu coming in at the end, is getting to see her reactions in the crowds things. But and he has like so when he's telling this story about the Shinigami, I know that he has that Kiku has we've seen him be kind of transported to different settings before. But like, it's the first time I remember, I could be wrong, but him having like almost an out of body experience.
We start to get a taste in these last couple episodes of this sort of like almost magical realism that starts happening, that really dominates Kiku's older arc. And that is really definitely the first time where we see, it's part of it is definitely a visual device and a storytelling device, but I think part of it is also, Kiku having like his first truly transformative experience on stage. And, so much about the show is finding your Rakugo. Like, what is the Rakugo? Not just like your style, like what are you going to be known for, but just like, when are you finally going to like inhabit your art? And that, I feel like, is his first true moment of like, this is me. This is my life. This is like the encapsulation of like my entire essence on the stage is this moment. So,
which is like,
it's a fantastic moment.
It's an incredible moment. I mean, no doubt. And it's really something that in the space of like one or two episodes, and like you said, it doesn't feel super rushed. He goes from this kind of like this spiritual experience, like this existential mountaintop of like it's just him in the audience. Like he is like the two kind of big burdens, which feels terrible to characterize people that way, but that's sort of how he feels in this moment of his dad and his brother. Like they're gone, they're out of his life, and he can just kind of be free to be in the quiet with himself and the audience. And it's like he's like sitting on top of this mountain by himself, and like not 2 episodes later, he's like either realized that that's not enough for him, or I just had some kind of epiphany, but like he wants like that's one of the things I love about, like you said, his kind of arc this episode is like he sort of comes to realize that like man cannot live by art alone. Like
exactly,
it's not going to sustain you in a way that will feed your whole person.
Well, and his desires are so interesting to me too, because he really does not allow himself happiness ever.
No.
And I think, he has these moments of happiness when performing with Tsukiroku and existing with him in the countryside for, however long he was there. And, but it's like, he doesn't allow himself happiness. He doesn't really know whether like what exactly it is he wants, but I feel like life pretty clearly in this show demonstrates to him that like it's just never going to allow him to have what he wants and be happy. Like he's never allowing himself to be happy, but also like life is also never going to allow him to be like anywhere close to happy as well, because like even his probably the happiest he ever is in his life is when he's living in the countryside with Tsukiroku, and it ends in the worst tragedy he will ever experience in life.
Fuck, man. It's so brutal.
It is incredibly brutal. And
what you're saying, it's makes perfect sense what you're saying, because I mean, you can tell that he feels like when these sort of conceptual forces or cosmic things beckon you in your life, you sort of have to listen. Like he's like talking to other people in that way as if it's obvious. Like when he's telling Sukoroku to come back, you know, it's like, hey man, it's your destiny, bro. Like when the people want you, it's what you got to do. And he's just like,
well, yeah,
nope.
it's like you shouldn't let your
Wait a minute.
own desires or happiness get in the way of your responsibilities. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, he is a man of duty, and a man of tradition, regardless of like, you know, how he personally feels about it. He is sort of, from the first moment he sets on screen, sort of accepted his lot in life. And that's why Sukoroku is such a good foil to him as a character, is because Sukoroku is like anything but that. You know, he's the very epitome of like, it's weird because Sukoroku is also kind of like Kiku in the sense that he sort of surrenders himself a lot of the time, but instead of surrendering himself to his desire, he just kind of surrenders himself to his desire to do as little as possible. When it's not involving Rakugo. Like, he's equally as frustrating of a personality as Kiku is at times, for sure.
Yeah, he's not really slavish to duty in the same way.
He's not really slavish to anything.
No.
And the only reason why he is as good at Rakugo as he is because he's like, that's him. Like he's a natural.
Yep.
He's a natural at it. It comes to him very easily. So it's like, you know, even that he, you know, I mean, he obviously puts effort into it, but it's like, you know, that effort is you know, a God-given, you know, sort of gift, which is, you know, sort of uncommon in that world.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and he has it's fascinating. Like this character, this savant, right? Like has all these really big ideas about kind of what he wants for the art. Like not just, you wouldn't think, right, that someone like him will be thinking about those kind of things. You think, okay, he's going to be concerned with himself, very much kind of myopic, but no, he's like, okay, I care about Rakugo as a whole thing. I care about its future. I see, you know, I want you and me, Bon, you know, Bon and Shin are going to like be these complementary forces that like, you know, you will carry on the tradition and give people what they want there, and I will be like ever evolving to suit sort of contemporary tastes, and like that way will be these two pillars holding up the art. And he just like was thinking big in all these you know, these quiet moments he has with Bon, like in revealing that part of himself. Cool, and no one knew that about him except for Kiku. Like the Yakumo didn't know he's thinking that way. And I mean, maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe he said one or two things, but I'm sure the Yakumo would have interpreted it as like insolence. You know, what do you know, fucker?
Yeah. Yakumo definitely would not have appreciated those thoughts, as would pretty much anybody but Kiku, I think. You know, it's obviously Rakugo definitely is slavish to tradition above all else. You know, it very much like the people in this show is a product of its time. And, you know, Japanese tradition in general is very resistant to change. So, you know, it follows that Rakugo would be the same, but, as is instance in the show as it is in real life, Rakugo did indeed change.
Yeah, I mean,
drastically.
I don't know. Like, so in chat a little while ago, I believe it's Blue Sea was mentioning that she saw Rakugo performed in London, like in England. Like it's now sort of a trans national.
There are English, like Japanese trained English language Rakugo performers. I know of two off the top of my head.
Wow.
One, I think, is a Canadian gentleman. The other one is a Japanese woman who speaks English. And yeah, I mean, just the fact that there are women performing Rakugo in general is a pretty big, it's a pretty big change. But also, I mean, Rakugo is still I think it is definitely an older person's like pastime, especially going to the theater.
Right.
to see Rakugo, but like Rakugo, yeah, it's pretty. Rakugo and Rakugo performers have a pretty commonplace presence on Japanese TV today. Like it's a pretty, even if it's not like actively sought out, just about everybody knows, what it is and what it's all about, and probably can name one or two Rakugo performers off the top of their head. Wow. And a lot of like Japanese mainstream comedians make crossovers into Rakugo. Like, I don't know if you ever watched Gaki no Tsukai, but it's like essentially like one of the most popular, if not the most popular comedy TV program. They're the ones that essentially popularized the silent library punishment game. I don't know if anybody's in chat has ever seen Silent Library. It was a pretty popular show on MTV there for a while that was a copy of what they did, which is but they're essentially known for these they're called Batsu games, which is just punishment games, but essentially they're there's these long drawn out, incredibly stupid, incredibly like punishing, hence their name, games where it's like, no laughing for 24 hours. And every time you laugh, you get like beat on the ass with a bat or something like that. And they just these incredibly elaborate scenarios. It's so funny. But
wow.
One of the like main cast members on the show on Gaki no Tsukai, who's been a main cast member for like 20-25 years, and this show's been running for like 40 years now, is a couple of years ago he fully changed his name because he became a Rakugo performer and like took his master's name. Wow. Essentially. So it's not far from the mainstream in Japan now for sure. So yeah, it's interesting to see, to say the least.
That's amazing. So shall we transition to episode 11? The sitcom in the countryside. My two dads. Like, mom's gone off and left. One's a drunk.
I have to say the moment at the beginning there where Kiku is like standing outside Tsukuroku's house and he's asleep and he's like screaming at Tsukuroku to get up. Yeah. And you have that moment where he's like looking very cold at Tsukuroku, and as soon as Tsukuroku actually gets around and hugs him, they transition back to showing Kiku's face and he's got a wide smile. I just immediately started crying. I did not expect to get hit that hard, but just knowing what I do now, oh man, like there are so few moments of genuine happiness like that for Kiku in the show.
Yep.
And I didn't even remember it. I didn't even remember that happened, but it's such a subtle moment of real genuine warmth from him that it really means a lot as a viewer.
I mean, this is my favorite episode of the show.
Yeah, it's a really good episode
for moments like that, because I'm a sucker for the happy times, and like it's like big dumb moments like that, or the sort of impromptu performance that leads to the sort of duet, if you will, between the two was amazing. And then this might be my favorite moment in the show. I mean, there's so many good ones, so it's close, but like when Kiku cuts Konatsu's hair,
oh my god,
that like is so emotional for me for some reason. Just the quiet, like intimate beauty. It's like in that moment, it's like he almost kind of becomes her family, like in that moment. How they
have such a particular interesting relationship throughout the show that is very often contentious more than it is friendly. But they do pretty easily love each other, and it's pretty obvious that's the case. And I think Kiku's love is more simply because that this is a product of his brother who he really loves. And I think that Konatsu comes to love him, even though that she definitely doesn't at the beginning. But it's an incredibly interesting, nuanced, atypical relationship. You rarely see something like this so particular and so subtle in in anime. You know, it's
Yeah.
on the surface, it's you know, your standard almost like sort of tsundere relationship, but it's you know, and weirdly enough, it's two tsunderes at one time.
It is the double tsundere.
The double, the double hit. But yeah, it's a fantastic scene. I really love the scene of Kiku doing these sort of small shows and bars and restaurants, and sort of coming to realize that doing Rakugo in these small venues is really like he can actually have fun.
Yeah.
He can actually have fun doing Rakugo because there's that emotional connection with the audience that you just kind of don't get in the bigger theaters. You know, you can't really look people in the eye as you're sitting across from them like you can in restaurants like that. So
totally.
But yeah, it's you know, this episode is the moment where he starts to really realize that maybe he's not so content with being alone after all. Or, you know, maybe he doesn't need to be so resigned to being, you know, alone. But yeah, and I also wrote that haircut scene is about as outwardly civil and affectionate as Kiku and Konatsu's relationship ever gets in the history of this entire show.
I know, and that is such a tragedy because
I know
in that moment, right, in her life, I feel like, I mean, of course she's gonna ideally still love and have a relationship with her father, but like,
yeah,
I mean, you look at kind of how she's living and how Sukeroku is at that moment, and you, of course, I mean, from the very beginning, when you hear in the show they're having a kid, you're just like, oh God, oh no, is he going to be fit to raise a kid? And along comes Kiku, who, like, when he is in the countryside, he's not the sort of hardened man that he becomes later that we see in the early. There's more of a tenderness about him because, as you say, like he's away from all those other things, and he's been reunited with his brother, and you see him, you know, he's just listening to her because she's going off on like how she, you know, loves her dad and she's going to work and she doesn't like her mom and all these things, and he's just quietly listening, cutting her hair. But it also brings, like, I think the right amount of like, hey, you need boundaries, you need a little bit of strictness, like that moment where he kind of grabs her chin, pulls her up and says, don't talk about your mom that way, like you'll spoil your beauty. And how he walks away, but she just kind of remains with her chin up, as in, like, what that communicated to me is no one's ever done this with me before. No one's ever told me, hey, like, straighten up, or I have these expectations of you. You need to be, you know, and that's like, kids need that. And
for sure.
I don't know that Sukeroku was capable of giving her, of meeting those kind of needs. So it's like, if only they could have been the two dads for her, that would have been incredible. You know, in an ideal world, that would have been.
We see that, and
amazing.
That's the true tragedy of the show, is that we see that for a bit, and there is a different world where that happens. But yeah, it's just, yeah. I mean, that's, you know, there wouldn't be drama in this show without what happens next, but it is truly pretty special there for a while. For sure. There's one of the reasons why I will never stop singing the praises of this show is that it's the rare anime period piece that's not a samurai or, like, you know, feudal era show that is entirely unafraid to, like, anchor itself in the specific period. I'm not talking about, like, you know, having a scene where somebody's like tearing a sheet off a calendar and it's like December 20th, 1946. Like, there's a scene at the end of episode 11 where it cuts to Miyokichi talking to a client who is, like, informing her of this, you know, show. And essentially it's how she finds out that Kiku is essentially back in her and her child's life. But during that scene, there's like a singer on the radio, and it's, like, very clearly like an old timey radio, and it's just playing very softly in the background. But just that little touch just so anchors it in a specific time period for me, and, like, a specific like cultural time period. Cause it's, you know, it's like a Japanese, like, you know, not an enka performer, because enka didn't really exist yet, but it's like like a traditional singer on the radio singing like a standard or something like that. And that really just, it's one of many little touches in this show that really do a good job of anchoring it in a specific era. But I wish anime would do it more. I don't know why so many anime that specifically take place in a certain time period are so afraid to like really anchor themselves in that time period in indirect ways. But I'm really glad that this show does that, because it really it adds a level of depth to the actual descending stories aspect, to where I can tell when something is taking place in the 1940s and the 1950s versus later when it's taking place in the 70s and 80s. Like, it's easy to tell. So I really appreciate that. I also really appreciate the first ED for this show. My God, what an unbelievable!
It's so good. Holy shit!
Oh my God, what an unbelievable! Just all those like very sort of sunset-ish shots of Asakusa and like that era of Tokyo is just so magical and atmospheric, and again really just anchors you in that time period in a way that I feel like anything else can't. It's just
it's beautiful,
amazing,
beautiful,
good, gorgeous.
So any other things to shout out about 11?
The only other thing I wanted to say is that I found it funny that when Sekirōku comes in to start performing Nozarashi with Kiku at the end there, that Kiku just automatically takes the female role because that's what he's good at.
Yeah.
And that's what he's used to. I really love that about him. I really love that they make him, this sort of naturally effeminate man. As obviously earlier in the show when they do the play at the Rakugo Playhouse, and he's playing the woman, the female part. It's just another nice little shout out to that, and the fact that he's like so natural at playing women in these shows. It's again really speaks to Akira Ishida's voice acting ability, but also just this amazing achievement of playing this character who's like specifically good at this sort of thing, and then being able to pull it off so naturally is just really cool.
Total. And when they go to bow, you can see the difference in their hands, right? I mean,
exactly.
Suke has these big manly fingers and big hand, and
very little attention paid to the specifics of the motion, whereas Kiku's very prim, very proper, very dainty, very elegant.
And his hands, he's got long nails, and they're smaller, and it just it speaks to the characterization. And that's just to really quickly mention, even though we've already finished talking about 10, another moment with hands that I really liked was once again when the 7th Yakumo is on his deathbed speaking about how part of him does not want to let the name go. And then Kiku begins to like frankly speak with him in a way that takes him aback, because you can see the look on his face like, holy cow, the kid is just going off and totally opening up and being honest. And it kind of cuts to like a shot of his hands as he drops. So he drops one of his arms and he goes kind of limp. And the other hand is like gripping the bed sheets so tightly. And it's like he's clinging on to life, and he's clinging on to that name that he's still so jealous for. But part of him, he's torn. He realizes like, it's time to relinquish this. It's my time. I'm dying. So there's like all kinds of little, it's just even paying attention to like the hands in the show could be really rewarding.
Yeah. It's amazing because I wouldn't necessarily say that there's really any point in this show where I feel like the animation is like spectacular or anything like that. But the character animation is so subtly perfect pretty much at all times that it's just, this show is animated by Studio Pierrot. Like Studio Pierrot, or sorry, not Pierrot, Dean. Studio Dean is not really known for making fantastically extravagant, good-looking shows, but you know, they were working within their constraints, and my God, they all, especially all of the Rakugo scenes, just the subtlety of character movement and the faces, and you know, I mean, a lot of it is helped by the camera cuts
Totally.
between character lines
Yep.
to, you know, sort of make it more pointed, but still, just the character animation in this show is let me just say it's better than it has any business being for a Studio Dean show.
Totally. I mean, that's, you alluded to what I was going to say, is that like the storyboarders and directors really helped the animators out in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
you know, really
for sure.
kind of, I think we're probably really explicit about what they wanted, and we're like, you know, the scope of what you're trying to do is limited, so
Yeah,
we can
absolutely.
just work within these small means, and we can achieve this. Because like, yeah, like you said, the camera cuts and they just picked, you know, emphasizing things like hands, like footwork, which I talked about a lot on the first episode of this series.
Right.
And like and even things like in the next episode when Sukaroku is performing for the first time in ages, how you'll see like on the back of his neck all this sweat, you know, to bring home the point that like, well, he really hasn't practiced in a while. He's out of practice, and that Rakugo, I've said it before, but I'll reiterate, is not just a sort of mental or emotional, you're connecting with the audience. Like there's a physical component of it as a performance, and
absolutely,
it's just very, very important. If sort of not neglected, but probably like you don't really think of it as being such an important part of it as a performance, but it truly is.
Oh, it's just as important as voice and emotion. I mean, it's you know, if you've seen any amount of real Rakugo, you know that the subtlety of movement is just as much as key as vocal performance, especially since really the only thing that you're allowed to have at your disposal in traditional, I believe it is either Kanto style or Tokyo style Rakugo, because there's also different styles of Rakugo, some of which we actually see later on in the show. But in this style of Rakugo, the most popular style of Rakugo in Japan, the only things that you have at your disposal are your fan, and there's words for these things in Japanese, and I should know them, but I don't. The fan and the sort of handkerchief that you're allowed to bring on stage. You're like, those are your only two props that you get, and they use them to spectacularly full effect in Rakugo performances. So yeah, it's the physical is definitely very important in the performance of Rakugo for sure.
Okay, so we are going to transition to episode 12, but first, I don't know about you, but I need to take a very short break. So
sounds good to me.
We will be right back. Yo, we're back. Thanks for being patient. And now we are going to get on with episode 12 here, 12, 13,
Woo.
and talk about the series as a whole. So,
Christ.
yeah. So, 12, the first note I have for episode 12, and the last two episodes bring this home, but it is present all throughout the show. Matsuda, too good for this world, man.
Yeah,
Holy
he's a
shit.
saint. I also
God.
had that in my notes. I had it in my notes in the first the episode 10. But yeah, Matsuda-san is a nothing short of a saint. He is a just probably the best person in the show, just morally.
I mean, just straight up, like, it just a very kind of believable version of this hired help archetype that has been perpetuated, like in a lot of like English fiction, I think. But there'll be these incredible, dynamic go-getters, like can make everything happen, but also give a shit and care about people in the family. But Matsuda, like, sort of is all that. But man, like, he just has such a big heart. And
he's an
really,
immensely
really cares.
caring person. His just utter joy at seeing Sukeroku again for the first time in years is truly incredible. I mean, it's just so heartwarming. Regardless of whether or not it's deserved. It's just really, really nice to see. And yeah, it's just very, it's, one of 8 million different moments in the show that he just demonstrates that he is just a genuinely good man. Too good, honestly, for these people, for any of these people.
It's so true. It's so true. I mean,
not that I actively dislike really any of them except for Miyokichi, which we'll get to, but he's just, I'm glad that you also, I'm glad that you said that, because I didn't really find any natural way to slip that in earlier, but yeah, he's just a genuinely wonderful presence throughout this entire show.
I just want, like, he needs to be taken care of. I want him to be like, all right, look, we're going to hire someone to look after you. You go to the spa, you get the pedicure, you go to the Rakugo show as an honored guest. You deserve this.
Yeah. He deserves whatever goodness is able to be sent his way, for sure. So, but yeah, I think this performance here at the inn is probably a high point for Rakugo performance in this show. I think both for Kiku and Sukeroku. I don't think it gets any better than this, which is really saying something, because there's some truly stunning performances in this show. But especially for Sukeroku, I mean, it's his performance here is so poetic. It's so prophetic of his ultimate fate later in the episode. But it's just, again, it's like, in any lesser show that wasn't so immaculately produced, his performance here would seem a bit convenient based on, what happens next. But, since so much of the show revolves around this sort of grand generational drama, it makes total sense that, he would be performing this story of a no good husband that, sort of turns his ways around. And, even if it was based on, it's also, just got to say, what a fantastic, like, folk tale, like, really, really good, intrinsically, very specifically Japanese to me in a way that in its, sort of morality and in its telling, obviously, but yeah, it's just, obviously, and like, it's if it wasn't already prophetic enough, there are also several shots during his performance of this story of Miyokichi, like both in the audience and just in the mind of Konatsu, who is in the audience.
Right.
But yeah, there's a lot of foreshadowing there. There's a lot of, it's like we can kind of all see it coming, even if you haven't seen the show already. But yeah, it is easily his best performance in this show, which makes it all the more It's terribly sad.
I know.
Given what happens.
It's amazing. Like, when I heard it the first time, and the thought crossed my mind this time. I mean, I know it's silly because it will be anathema to do this in Rakugo. But I thought, did he change the ending? To sort of as a wish fulfillment thing. Like, and the end was the man really did turn over a new leaf and live happily ever after with his family. And was something darker meant to happen. But that would be unthinkable to do in this setting with this art. So you didn't know you didn't do that, but boy, when the audience erupts and Konatsu specifically jumps up at the end just to clap, like the unfettered joy, like just pouring out of her, it's so amazing. And like you said, he kills it in this performance, and he doesn't really, he's never, despite what I said earlier, I wouldn't have characterized him as like an sort of intentional or methodical person, but it really did seem like he took a lot of care in picking this story. It is a very personal performance.
It's another example of like really the only thing that he cares about is Rakugo. I mean, it's but when he cares big, and it's clear that he loves his craft, and it's what he's meant to do, regardless of how reluctant he is to do it. It's his thing.
It is.
There's no better way of putting it.
Yeah, it's like what he was born to do, if that were to so to speak. But let's talk about you alluded to it a moment ago. Let's talk about Miyokichi. You already said you didn't like her.
I think that she is I put in my notes that Miyokichi is a vile woman. And I think that there are moments in this show that I definitely really like her and appreciate her as a character, and can definitely like understand how her life is just as traumatic and terrible and hard as anybody's is in this show. But her appearance in this episode is truly, it made me angry in a way that it didn't the first time.
Me too.
And
me too.
Knowing what I do now, her showing up at this moment, not to reunite with her. I mean, it's, she doesn't, I don't think that she really owes Tsukuroku anything, because, he was as terrible of a husband as she was terrible of a wife. But she owes Konatsu, and it just really makes me angry that the thing that she was there to do was to try to convince Kikuhiko to run away with her and abandon everything, and essentially uproot his own life for her own selfish gains. And obviously Kikuhiko has plenty of his own selfishness about him, and he freely admits to it, and often uses it as a cudgel to sort of beat himself down emotionally a lot of the time. But yeah, I was observing that she has sort of this, they're both selfish, but she has this sort of like outward destructive selfishness.
Absolutely.
That's really harmful to like everybody around her. Whereas like Kiku's is very like contained. It's very like emotional selfishness at the expense of his own happiness almost. At least the selfish decisions that he makes almost always end up kicking his own ass more than anybody else around him. But, and that's obviously no more true anywhere else than in this scene, because you see how he comes out of it. He comes out of it with, two people that he loved. And I do think that he had love.
Oh, no doubt.
From Miyokichi.
Yeah. Yes.
But he comes out of it, without them, and he's the only survivor and has to live with it.
And their child.
I was going to say, has to live with not only the consequences of his own actions, but the consequences of their actions as well.
And honestly,
but yeah, I really
go ahead.
am I'm just disgusted by her in this episode, to be honest with you. I really find it very hard to justify anything that she does in this episode.
I'm gonna try to temper what I say a little bit, because this is also a thing that made me very, very angry and upset. Just her whole deal, her presence, and everything about what she's doing and saying in these episodes, in this episode rather. And you use the word destructive. That is absolutely the right word. That is the word I would use. That it just seemed like she's been in a very, really, I guess, even from the beginning. Maybe it's the benefit of hindsight, but looking back, there's always been like a whiff of self-destructiveness about the character, and it just feels like that since Kiku left her, that train has really picked up steam. Towards that brick wall, and and the fact that Kiku ends up with a child that, I mean, I think honestly you could say that she had to spite him. Like she runs off with Sukeroku, I think, and settles for him in no small part to get back at Kiku for neglecting her.
Absolutely.
And Kiku realizes that he was an asshole and that like he did that for stupid reasons. I mean, I think you can't totally blame him. I mean, he says it's all his fault. It's not all his fault. She has agency, but like,
it's not his fault, but he also shows that he realized, he shows remorse. And not only remorse, he shows like a commitment to rectifying the entire situation by essentially saying, like, Konatsu, Sukeroku, and Miyokichi, let's all come back and live in my house together in Tokyo, and I will care for all of you as a family. Yeah. Like he's going so far as to like essentially like adopt all three of these just devastatingly selfish and irresponsible people. Not to say that about Konatsu, but she's a product of these two irresponsibly selfish and destructive people in their own ways, be it self-destructive or whatever. But he's committed to rectifying what he perceives as his mistake, whereas Miyokichi never shows a hint of remorse about anything that she does.
Right. Yeah. And in chat, so I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I haven't seen season 2.
Oh shit! Okay,
I saw season 1 when it aired, and I'm rewatching it. I never did get with second season, and Blue Sea in chat says season 2 will clarify some of these things in episode 12. I don't know. So it's could you speak to that in a non-spoilery way? Like what is being alluded to?
It's been long enough to where I don't want to risk it, but I mean, there definitely will be a good amount of clarification, but I don't think that there is any amount of absolving of what happens. I am not tempered. Knowing what I do about this entire show, I am definitely not tempered by that knowledge in any way. Watching this again now.
Okay. Well, here's what I'll say. Not in an attempt to make a justification or absolving anyone, but like just to add, maybe add a little bit of context for Miyokichi's actions here. Like, and I don't know if this is a thing that you have talked about before, but like, so we see throughout the show that like, ladies at this time in Japan are of course it's rampant misogyny all throughout the country, and they can't do certain things like Rakugo, and
institutionalized misogyny in a lot of ways.
That's a great way to put it. And so characters like Konatsu are told, actually, the thing for you to do at a Rakugo performance, you be there to, spur on the male performers with your perfume and your good
the eye
looks,
candy,
just to get them G'd up, to do good. That's what
Yeah.
that's women's power, I think Kiku says. And you know, he's a product of his time too, and I'm sure he's trying to be well intentioned, and he shows that his beliefs at least evolve at least a little bit when he's older.
yeah,
But maybe in Miyokichi's case, maybe she's someone whose inner turmoil, like if she was allowed to be more self-directed and had more creative outlets, perhaps that destructiveness would not have like been taken out on the people that she cares about so directly.
yeah.
Maybe if she lived in a different place, you know?
Well, yeah, and I agree. I mean, I am definitely not trying to downplay the idea that she had just about every institutional and financial and cultural disadvantage played against her all at once, because, you know, she was clearly somebody who was brought up poor in probably a broken home, in an extremely hard time for any Japanese person to live in, especially a Japanese woman, from a lower class background. I mean, she undoubtedly had a very traumatic life. It's very easy to see. I just, I it's certainly not a justification for her actions.
Totally.
And yeah, it is hard. It's hard because there's always a balance. There's always a line to walk with trying to understand a person's traumas and a person's, the reasoning for their actions, regardless of whether or not if it's a justification. Because a justification, can only go so far. I mean, when you results in death, there's very little justification in the real world for what we see happen in this episode. So,
I mean, when she says to Kiku that she can't look at her daughter because she realizes I birthed him with that, like, she's that dirty man's, and so I only get angry. Like, I mean, that's like unforgivable. Like, to me, dad, horrific. IRL dad, like, I can't abide this. Like, this is a heinous thing for you to feel and say. God, that was I didn't remember that she was all of this. I mean, of course, I remembered the big death scene, and that she has had suicidal tendencies, but I remembered the tragedy of it. But I did not remember it. I don't think it made me as angry the first time. But yeah, I mean, she was just like so brazen and so, like you said, I mean, she doesn't owe anything to Sukeroku, but like, I mean, it is
part of her decision making resulted in Konatsu's birth.
Yeah,
and regardless of like
she did that.
Regardless of what happened before that, this is a person. This is your person that you now are, because of your decision making, you owe at least, enough responsibility to make sure that they have a good life. Even if that good life is not one that you provide, you got to do something, you got to do something. And I don't know. It's really, it's frustrating because I know, not for either of them, but like, I just feel bad for Konatsu. I just, knowing that she's not going to have the upbringing that she deserves. And knowing that she, like, essentially grew up like hating her own mom. It's just, it sucks. So
hating her and not fully hating Kiku, her kind of surrogate father, but like he ends up kind of being the target for all kind of her bitterness and just brokenheartedness and everything at her circumstances. Like, she dumps it all on him, and that's not entirely fair to him. But like, that's just
I think it's
the
very
situation.
easy to see why a child would feel that way.
Oh, completely. Oh, totally.
That's definitely a child's understanding of that entire situation. I think it's pretty easy to see.
Oh yeah,
how she could have gotten there, but I
luckily there's Matsuda for her to cry on.
Exactly. Thank God for that. But
yes.
Yeah, I mean that's the next episode. But yeah, I just before we get there, I just wanted to say that that just the actual scene of their deaths is probably one of the most devastating things I've ever seen in an anime. It's high. It is certainly high melodrama.
Yeah,
and it is not exactly bereft with realism.
Oh, fuck that. Who cares?
I don't give a shit. It is genuinely just utterly soul crushing.
It is. It's so brutal.
Is the only way that I could describe it. I mean, because I remember watching that for the first time and just being like, "No way, no, they're not going to die. This can't
happen.
Like, that's not what this show is going to be." And then it happens, and I was just like, "Oh my God!" It completely reframed my idea of what this show was going to be when it happened the first time. And seeing it again, I remembered that the feeling that I had the first time that I saw it. But yeah, it's just, just I mean, it's almost weirdly comforting for me in a way, because you so rarely see scenes like this, of just such high drama and like accurately portrayed misery in anime. Most anime, like, sadness is a very different thing than this. And I'm just really appreciative of it being a brutally sad scene, but also just like absolutely like poetic.
Yes.
And it's almost like a Greek tragedy.
Totally.
In how like melodramatic it is. It's just genuinely gorgeous in an incredibly sad, brutal way. But like, it's gorgeous in the same way that like Romeo and Juliet is gorgeous, in its own way. Even though Romeo and Juliet is like literally the greatest cliche in literature now. It is.
There's a reason for that, right?
There's no denying its beauty, and it's poetry, literally and figuratively. But yeah, it's very similar to that sort of thing for me. Just that high melodrama is just. Give me 5,000 more anime that can do that.
I know, and I mean, on the one hand, I don't want to say, "Hey, anime, stop doing the sort of soft touch, subtle like cutaways and metaphors and cutting to rain starting or birds flying away to like symbolize what's happening." But
power
like
lines,
like, but that's very good and has its place. But like, I love this too. Like, as a fan of folks like Osamu Dezaki, and like the high melodrama is wonderful, and I loved it about this scene. And I was just I went from being pretty pissed off to like just really heartbroken, and like even like and like you said, that there's this like moment when Sukeroku discovers them, like, which thank goodness he discovered them. Who knows what would have transpired, but he's well, I say say maybe if he hadn't discovered them, they could have been alive.
There's no good outcome to this situation. It was clearly meant to be. Somebody was going to die. It just depends on who.
But so when he comes in there, he does the thing from the Rakugo story of like, I'll change, I'll get an honest work, I'll stop it just made me
he even
so
says
fucking...
he even says, there's a reason I picked this story to tell tonight.
Mm,
He knew that he was going to have to make this confession at some point.
Oh my God.
And he just immediately resigns himself to doing it as soon as he enters that room and sees what's transpiring. But yeah, he even literally says to them, it's no coincidence that I picked this story to tell tonight. Like, you both saw it. So.
And he does that thing that, like, Kiku is kind of coming to realize the importance of family in addition to art and sort of dutiful purpose. But dude just like runs a million feet past him. He's like, I'll just give it all up because you're all important. This was enough for me. This one moment, this one performance. I'm good now.
Yeah.
If you want me to quit, I quit. And it just made me so, again, angry at Miyokichi for spinning this guy into like feeling so guilty about doing the thing that he loves to do because, I don't know, it reminds her of a jilted lover. Like,
yeah,
I mean, she really is making his life miserable. Not again,
yeah.
and as you pointed out, not that he didn't do it to her.
It's not even that she's making his life miserable. It's that she's diminishing his worth as a person.
Totally.
And that, to me, is her worst crime, is that she is, it's not necessarily like emasculating, because I don't really believe in that idea, but it's like,
right.
He sees worth in himself for the first time in his life through the performance of Rakugo. Everybody can see it. Kiku sees it. Their dad sees it. Miyokichi refuses to see it, even though she knows that he's good at it.
God.
Because it reminds her of a person that she actually loved and only got with this poor guy because she wanted revenge, petty revenge that then turns into a terrible life decision. And that to me is her greatest crime, is that she is diminishing the worth that this frankly poor man sees in himself because of just the most bullshit reason, selfish, ugly, vindictive reason imaginable. And that is why, I can't really forgive her for any of her actions. But I mean, obviously it's, very easy to not forgive her considering as she resulted in both of their deaths, but still let's
blame the inn, blame the shoddy work of the inn.
Yeah. OSHA clearly was
the
not
balcony.
in there. Yeah.
It's like
the local building inspector needs to get sued on that one.
Oh, this reminds me of a story Vorgalia told on an early podcast episode of I think I want to say it's the French dub. It may be the Italian dub, but I think it's the French dub of the Fist of the North Star TV show.
Oh my God.
When Yuria like jumps off the balcony to commit suicide, basically. In the French dub, they have it such that the railing came out.
Oh my God.
No.
Come
Poor
on.
Workmanship. And that's
some fucking Harmony Gold level bullshit.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's so weird that Fist of the North Star is the show that you're trying to make palatable to younger people. Like, there's
I know exactly
too much other. Anyway.
Anyway,
do you think that the show failed Miyokichi, or do you think like do you hold this against the show or against Miyokichi? I guess
I hold it against Miyokichi, but I also hold it partially against the Japanese society that the show is portraying, because I do think the show does a good job of portraying, this sort of imperial Japan and immediately post imperial Japan society is a pretty brutal one. I mean, the fact that Yakumo, the seventh Yakumo, and Sugoroku have to go to frickin' Manchuria to perform Rakugo is pretty. It's a pretty brutal thing to have to do with your son to go to a captured territory. So it's like, I think the show does do a good job of showing that the society is pretty unforgiving. I don't necessarily think that the show failed Miyokichi, because I think the show set out exactly what it wanted to do in portraying Miyokichi as a pretty vile. She is pretty much the villain of this first arc. I mean, she's this specter, this destructive specter that really haunts both of these men's lives. And obviously there are other, sort of villains, but in terms of like their emotional lives and their emotional well-being, she really is a net negative force on both of them.
Sure. Well, maybe she's like the generational karma of the Japanese society visited
Very
upon.
True.
It's like,
very true.
It's leading
she
artists.
Is nothing if not a product of her upbringing. For
Absolutely.
Sure.
That's why I think as vile as she is, she's tragic, right? Because she just keeps hitting these walls in her life. I mean, she's like Kiku. She was discarded, but she did not have discarded men can clearly come out of it. Have a chance to come out of it better, I guess.
That's very true, and I think it's easy for us within the context of the show not to see her as a tragic character because everybody's tragic. So that's when fair. Everybody is the same thing, then everybody's on a level playing field because everybody is living a tragic existence in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it's hard, but you're right. I don't think that she is. I don't think that she's necessarily blameless, but I do think that there are very easy reasons to explain, why she is the kind of person that she is. And she clearly, you're right. She is the sort of generational trauma. She's the culmination within a specific person of the sort of destructiveness of Imperial Japan. Mm-hmm. And the sort of culture that it raised on its citizens. And granted, it's certainly not a phenomenon unique to Imperial Japan during this time. Right. But since that's where this story is taking place, it's a perfect representation of how that society is very destructive to the poor and very destructive to women, both inside and out of Japan for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The last thing I want to say about episode 12 was that, like, the story that why can't I think it's Tsukuroku tells, the Rakugo performance he gives about the fishmonger and the purse and the wife who said he was dreaming. And that the party he was having was a sweet. No, the party was real, but finding the money was like the sweet dream, right? That he had to wake up from. And I guess sadly, it seems like both of the male characters also had to like wake up from. Like, I hate saying it that way because it makes it seem like it's inevitable when like we want to give agency and responsibility to Miyokichi for doing the things she did, but like it's just so sad that like Kiku sees all this as like punishment for daring to dream that he could live happily with his people.
He literally says one of the last lines in the episode was, "I was abandoned again, punishment for my sweet dreams."
God damn it.
God damn it. God damn it is right.
Okay. All right. I don't have a ton of notes about episode 13. He's very transitional to the next season. What about you?
It is very transitional. I did observe that, so in episode 10, during the 7th Yakumo's funeral, Matsuda-san remarks that Kiku was a very good appointed mourner and never even cried in front of the mourners, as if he's like strong and not just like an incredibly distant and cold person in general. Which again is Matsuda-san showing that he's just an incredibly affectionate person that sees the good in everybody. But you can really see that here in Kiku not crying at this quote unquote funeral, even though it's literally just them leaving the funerary with the ashes. I mean, that to me is one of the most devastating things. Is it's just like there's not even a funeral. It's just, I mean, because like, who would come? Just them. They're the only ones. So and he finally cries when in the weirdest possible moment for him to cry, which is when he's sitting in front of the association president. essentially admitting to himself and to the president that he is going to take the name, because there's nobody else left.
Yeah, no,
and he kind of has to.
Yeah,
but yeah, there's another moment in this episode that I liked is maybe the wrong like is very hard to say about any of this shit, but I did really appreciate it where Konatsu is finally sort of saying her sort of thesis statement for her attitude in the rest of the show, which is eventually I'm going to kill you. And essentially she wants to kill him for quote unquote killing her father. But he responds to her saying for the first time that she wants to kill him with he says, "Kill me then, I'd feel much better," which is like,
fuck, dude.
Oh my god.
Yeah. I mean,
just a really devastating, and that's I think one of the last lines that he says before the jump forward in time, but which sort of sets up what their actual relationship will look like through the rest of the show, which is loving but immensely contentious as well, almost always belligerent and
very belligerent,
sarcastic, tongue-in-cheek.
Yep.
Yeah. That's kind of how Kiku develops too into his old age, which I actually really appreciate, is that him just sort of becoming a sarcastic old spinster bastard in his old age, which I really like.
It rules. He's great.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, this is where we jump forward again
for
the first time in like 12 episodes. Yeah. I just have to say right off the bat that I still have trouble believing that Yotaro is voiced by Tomokazu Seki, because this is not necessarily an atypical role for him, because he voiced a lot of roles like this in the 90s. A lot of comedic, sort of more upbeat roles, but of course I'm a child of the early 2000s anime scene, so I know him much more for roles like Gilgamesh in Fate, which is very haughty.
Is that really him?
Voice. Yeah, he's Gilgamesh in Fate. He's also the Bones of Creation in Thunderbolt Fantasy, which is a very similar performance of just, I know him more as these sort of like deep voiced, very haughty, very superior characters, where in this, it barely even sounds like him to me. And that to me is all the more impressive. He just is again, another one of these, just sort of older generation seiyuu who is just giving the performance of their lives. And, we haven't seen much of that yet. We do thankfully see him finally do a little bit of Rakugo here in this episode, but yeah, it's just, he's so good. And I'm so happy that it's him. And then he gets to do this, a little bit more playful, a little bit more upbeat role. It's just really refreshing for, what his career has become essentially.
Yeah, it was super fun performance.
Yeah.
The only big notes I have for this episode are that that you can kind of see the wheels turning on, like, oh no, all the bad shit from the 7th and 8th generation seems like it's just it has every chance in the world of repeating, right? Because you got Yota wanting to inherit the name of Sukeroku, so Sukeroku is back haunting the master of the previous generation. You got Konatsu in the picture having a child without a father around. I am praying that this child does not have at least for now, Kiku and Matsuda are there and have some stability in this little child's life. I mean, and that was such a cool, also, like you mentioned, the magical realism that comes into play in his old age and Kiku's old age, being visited by Sukeroku at the grave of the 7th generation. It was so cool. What a great.
Yeah, there is a lot more stuff like that to come in the second season, in terms of like actual magical realism as, you know, like it's not just a storytelling device. This is like something that is like manifested, be it in the mind of Kikuhiko, who might be addled in his old age, or it might actually be happening in some way. I won't spoil that, you know, for the rest of the show, but it is, yeah, it's definitely a foretelling of things to come down the line for Kikuhiko specifically, because he's just about the only character who's still alive that experiences it. And that is all I'll say.
Okay. Wow. So interesting. So
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Also, the president's a dick. I just want to put that out there. What a dick.
Yeah.
Like
he's playing a role that he needs to play, because, you know, I think about he reminds me a lot of the Shogi Association president from March Comes In Like a Lion, because even though the Shogi Association president is a much more like sort of comedic character than this one is, they're both assholes, and they're both necessary assholes, because I get the feeling that you kind of have to be an old curmudgeonly dick to be the president of, you know, essentially a dying art, you know. So
you do. I just can't help being annoyed at you know, well, Sukaroku's dead. He leaves a hole. He leaves a hole in my soul too. Like, well, not a big hole. Your ass was not at the funeral.
Yeah, I bet you didn't even remember him until I mentioned his name, you dickhead.
Yeah, you wouldn't even talk to him face to face the last time you talked. You looked at the wall because he was not worth looking upon.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Well, again, it's again a product of that time, and a product of Japanese culture in general, is measuring one's worth based on their pursuits. And, you know, to these people, I mean, I've known people like that. My old band director in high school was just as much of an asshole as this guy was. Measured my entire worth as to whether or not I could play trumpet in jazz band, which is the stupidest measure of a high schooler's worth you could possibly put on them. But it's like, yeah, it's you can tell when people measure other people solely by, you know, it's the same thing as like, you know, like capitalists measuring people solely by their ability to work.
Sure.
You know, or by their work ethic, as if work ethic is something that should define your worth as a human being. You know, it's similar to that to me. So you know, you're right. He's an asshole. He can get fucked.
Get fucked. Stop capitalism.
Fuck capitalism.
Fuck capitalism.
That's the message.
Yeah.
That's the message from this final episode.
Yeah. And also, birth control is good.
Yeah. Not plentifully available in 1940s Japan, unfortunately.
No.
I would imagine.
And even if it was, right, I mean, it's, well,
yeah.
Anyway, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Anybody's guess.
I was going to tell a story from French history that I just decided not to, I think is what happened in my brain there. All right. So, more to say about 13, or shall we give our thoughts on the series as a whole?
Yeah, I think 13 is just, you know, your basic bridge between seasons. So I don't really have much else to say beyond that. 12 is clearly the climax of the season.
I can't wait to see season 2 now. Like,
oh, it's so good.
Oh, we're definitely continuing this.
It is every bit as good in utterly different ways than the first season. So
very interesting.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. It's
awesome.
Really good. Yeah.
Okay. So you've said that you think this is one of the best anime ever made.
Without question.
Do you have like a numbered list in your head of your tops, or just sort of like it's in the top tier?
I think this would at least be within the top 3. I struggle to think of any anime that has more of a emotional impact than this one did on me. And I wouldn't necessarily say that, you know, it's like, oh, this anime made me cry a lot. I think about this anime still 4 years on more than most. And I just think that I part of it is just me and the importance that I place on certain things within storytelling, like I really, really, really enjoy time and the passage of time being used as a storytelling device. I really enjoy generational stories.
Hmm.
I really am fascinated by, um, you know, like parental and sibling relationships within generational stories, and like how, the sins of the father type stuff.
Sure.
I'm really interested in. It's why Metal Gear Solid 5 is such a great game.
You know what I was gonna say? I was gonna say, big Fire Emblem fan, are you?
Yeah, Fire Emblem is another great example of that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just, that, yeah, Sins of the Father is definitely such a fascinating thing to me and a fascinating thing to explore. And I think this, even though it's not really a direct representation of Sins of the Father exactly, it should just be like sins of the progenitor or sins of whoever came
Mm-hmm.
before me. Like, even though it's like less sins and more just like shit that went wrong.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
bad shit that happened to
Mm-hmm.
my parents or my brother or whatever, like getting passed down. But yeah, I just, it's, I think, yeah, it's just it's a dramatic achievement that I can't really draw a parallel with in anime. And it's like, a lot of people would probably say it probably didn't need to be an anime. I think you could make
Oh,
just as
Kish.
good of a live. Yeah, but I do think that this is like a rare occasion where I would see a live action version of this show and it could be every bit as good as it would be in anime. Because thankfully, most of the show isn't relying on the spectacular, animation or things that can only happen within anime. But I'm glad that it was. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad that we got to see these specific voice actors lend their talents to this, because I think there is definitely something freeing about dedicating, this vocal performance, to like playing a character, like all these different like tiers.
Yes.
I struggle to think of anything quite this good or important in like the world of voice acting. Like I genuinely, regardless of language, don't think I've ever seen anything this impressive,
Hmm.
and on this scale. I mean, I think just on the merits of the voice acting alone, I would say this is probably one of the greatest anime ever made. But just like in terms of the pacing, the directing, the use of color, the magical realism, the meaningfulness of just about every character that appears in the show, the voice acting, the music, which I didn't even, I
Yeah.
usually am. It should tell you, anybody that knows me should tell you about like how good I think this anime is, that I haven't even mentioned the music yet, because it's just like there's so much else here to talk about. I mean, like every aspect of this show is near flawless. I mean, there's clear corner cutting that's happening in the animation and in the, storyboarding or whatever, that are just like necessary aspects of both it being produced at Studio Dean, unfortunately, and it being a TV anime, which is incredibly hard to make nowadays.
Mm.
But given what they had, it's pretty much perfect. I mean, I would not change a single thing. So yeah, I think that this is easily one of the best anime ever made in terms of just like pure, like pure weight of contribution to the medium of anime. This is like,
Mm.
I cannot think of anything like it, really. It's just a unparalleled work to me.
Wow. I mean, that very, very ringing endorsement from Ono Anime for
Yeah. Yeah, you could consider that an official Ono anime. I know Patrick would agree with me too, because we've talked about this at length, on our show when it was first airing. I mean, I think literally like one of the first things out of both of our mouths at the end of when the final episode aired was like, yeah, this is one of the best ever. Was like, even back then we were like, this is one of the best anime ever made, period. Like it was just so immediately apparent to both of us. the importance of this show. And I think, in a way, it's very poetic that I don't think that it really has gotten the recognition that it deserves in
Isn't
Japan
it, though?
or here.
Yeah.
It is for a very select group of people, and I think that it, in fact, because it was an anime and not a live action project, it really, as a result of that, didn't get the appreciation and acknowledgement that it would have gotten if it was a live action thing. If somebody were to like make this into like a Memoirs of a Geisha level, like Japanese Hollywood cross production,
Mhm.
it would win Oscars. I have absolutely no doubt that if it was done right, it would do that. But just, it didn't happen that way. And the fact that it was told as a manga instead of a book, and as an anime instead of a live action TV show or movie, I think that just due to the nature of the perception of those types of media in Japan, and in many ways over here, even though I don't think America has as many hang-ups about animation as Japan does in terms of prestigiousness, thanks to like Pixar and all that shit.
Yeah, we've come a ways over a couple decades for sure.
Yeah, I definitely think we have our own problems when it comes to like a quote unquote adult animation and seeing animation as like an adult form of entertainment. But we certainly do not have any qualms with like giving very prestigious awards to animation. But yeah, I just think that, it is very poetic in a way that that this show doesn't get the recognition it deserves. I mean, if it was my choice, it would be, the most highly recognized anime ever made, but that's just, not not the way things work. But I'm, it does feel like being in a cool club to be among the select few group of people that really realize this show's worth as a work of art and a like sort of irreplaceable cultural window as an American into an era of Japan and a look into a Japanese art form that we just don't get over here. So
apparently there is a live action film, according to
Is
Lucy.
there?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
In chat, she mentioned.
Well, I wonder how that did.
Well, I probably in keeping with the rest of it, right? Was not as well received as it deserved. And I will say that I stand behind everything you said. Like, it's funny, when it first aired and I watched it, I mean, I thought it was great. I can look back on my list that I made that year, and it's kind of embarrassing now. I have it as like my number 4 best anime of the year.
Actually, shit. You know what? I wonder. I feel like it was our anime of the year back in 2016, but I would actually have to probably go back like into our podcast and look. But
I am
mine actually might have been Sound Euphonium that year.
I think that was the year before. I think that was 2015.
Oh, yeah, you're probably right. But yeah, no.
I have Yuri on Ice was on that list.
Oh fuck, you're right. That might have been mine. That's embarrassing to think about now.
well, Yuri on Ice is cool. It was I had it as number 8. I have my top 10 list. So what did I have above it though? I think I had I didn't even have Mob Psycho above it. I think I'm a big, you may not know this about me, or maybe you do. Certainly the chat knows that recency bias is a thing I suffer greatly from. And,
no, it's something everybody suffers from.
I mean, but to a degree that is deeply just a problem, such that right before I put my list together, I was watching a bunch of stuff so I could make what I thought was an adequate list, and I watched all of Ray Zero, and I have that as my anime of the year because I was so into it at the time. But looking back, it's just like, holy shit! Like, I mean, Ray Zero is fun.
I'm sorry, my favorite show overall of 2016. I'm literally looking at thankfully, we made a YouTube video of that podcast with captions that I put in, and looky here, my favorite overall show, Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju.
There you go. There you go.
There we go. I knew I had to give it to that spot. Patrick's, of course, was Love Live Sunshine. I will not hold that against him.
It's okay. It's all right.
No, I don't blame him. I don't blame him for that. Love Live Sunshine is very good. But yeah, I think, my confusion was my favorite original series was Yuri on Ice, and then favorite overall was Rakugo. Yeah, that was a good choice on my part, I think. No regrets there.
No, not at all.
Still holds up. Actually, funnily enough, Rakugo was my best anime of 2016 and 2017, considering that the second season aired.
Yeah, there you go.
In 2017.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that specifically now. I thought that was really funny, but I was just like, if I'm being honest with myself, nothing else even came close.
Oh,
either of those years for me.
UFO season 2 was that year. That was my number 2. And then Erased.
Yeah, same.
I loved Erased.
It was my favorite adaptation or whatever. We always did this thing where we did favorite original, favorite adaptation, and then favorite overall, so that we could get away with choosing 3 different animes as our favorite.
Yeah. Oh my god. But looking back on it now, I mean, like I said, I thought it was really good when it came out. I mean, this is great. But I know Blue Sea is ashamed of me. You should be ashamed. I mean, I've rewatched just about all that stuff, and I think the only thing that would be in the same galaxy as Rakugo is probably Mob season 1. And UFO 2 is really good. I mean, I don't want to knock UFO 2
again, I said this when we were both on Anime's Lit. I also think Mob Psycho is one of the best anime ever made.
It is one of the best. Yeah. I adore that show. It's in my personal favorite top 5 for sure. But I really have to now think hard about kind of where I slot this, because and maybe I should just wait until I've seen all of it. But I mean, just this season,
you definitely should.
But the storytelling is just masterful. It is masterful storytelling. It is a clinic in good direction. It is wonderfully told, subtly told. When it needs to, and as we said, melodramatic also at times. It is this transmission of culture, which is fittingly what Rakugo itself is. This storytelling, verbally passed down, and we're being passed down a piece of Japanese history by the show. The show is telling us a Rakugo of this little slice of Japanese history. And the character work is it's pretty unparalleled, honestly. I mean, it's the things that are going on with the characters are amazing, and I also will speak to love of generational storytelling because it was just because I care about history, and because I think people sort of it takes, I think, some doing to get people, at least where I'm from, to kind of acknowledge that they did not just pop into this world like a little prime mover, to use Aristotle's language, to kind of unbound by the past before. And it's I'm freely making these decisions based on my own acumen and reason alone. It's there's actually so many things that we don't even know that are informing us. Not to get too deterministic, but that shit matters a lot, and it matters in Rakugo Shinju deeply.
Oh yeah,
and people suffer for it, and that's one of the reasons I think being an ethical person is important. To get a little personal.
I don't think there's a person that's lived in history that hasn't in some way suffered because of the mistakes of their parents. I mean, it's as endemic to life as breathing is. I mean, it's unless you were born in a freaking tube, unless you're Mega Man or Android Kikaider, you you know, and even Android Kikaider suffered greatly because of his father's mistakes. So
Have you seen
But-
the live action Kikaida?
I have not. My only experience of anything related to Kikaider is Android Kikaider the animation, which was one of the first shows on Adult Swim's
Yeah.
original anime block back in the day.
I-
Still,
oh.
we want to talk about sad. That is one of the saddest shows I have ever seen. Still to this day.
I missed it then, and I've always wanted to see it, but
It's so good. I mean, I wouldn't say it's so good, but it's definitely like worth watching.
Yeah,
if
no,
you
I'm
ever
really
have the time.
interested, and I have gotten a hold of the Tokusatsu Kikaider, and
Yeah.
it's wild, man. It really
is.
crazy.
I bet you it is.
Just deeply strange, but in a wonderful way.
That is a very good description of pretty much all tokusatsu, especially
Yes.
from that era.
Yes.
Deeply strange, but wonderful
Yeah.
in its own way.
Oh, just it carries around a red guitar, like it's
Yeah.
Has
Well,
a-
he carries around a guitar in the anime.
in the anime.
too, so-
Okay.
Oh,
And
yeah.
does he have the bike
Yeah.
with the little bucket seat?
Yeah.
It's
And
just so
I
tremendous.
think there are definitely some liberties taken with that, but yeah, the guitar and the motorcycle definitely are retained in the anime in certain ways.
Awesome. Well, but yeah, I guess when I see the whole story, then I'll think, okay, where do I place this in my personal?
It'll be
like,
interesting to
favorites in
see.
this?
I definitely, the second season did not do anything to temper my enthusiasm for the show. Let's just say that. I think it's just an incredible continuation of where I actually want to say that I probably like the second season more than I like the first. Just because I'm so infatuated with Yotaro and Konatsu's own personal character arcs, sort of set against the sort of tapering off of Kikuhiko's. It's just, there's so much going on there in the second season with the development of Rakugo and the development of these characters, and it's it's really good. I don't want to say any more than that, but it's really good in some different ways. But yeah, if you enjoy the generational storytelling, if you enjoy these people, trying to escape the strictures of the cycle of trauma and regret and, all of that, you'll definitely really enjoy the second season, I feel like. So, yeah.
Very, very excited. I'm very excited
Yeah,
to see
it's
it.
really good.
And we'll just repeat what we both said at the beginning. Kiku Seiyu, just an all-world performance. I mean, and I think, I don't want to be like, oh, hey, like Koichi Yamadera like wasn't as good. I mean, I think he deserves all the plaudits in the world, but like, I guess like
Akira Ishida is carrying the most weight in the show because he's the main character. And he's voicing this character over 40 or 50 years of his life. I mean,
right.
Nobody else is doing that.
Yeah, and there's just something, I don't know, man. There's just something so haunting, and there's just a depth to the work Ishida's doing here that I mean, I'm not as familiar, at least off the top of my head. I'd have to look at the CV to know, but like I can't recall like other great performances or anything like that, just because I'm not familiar with Seiyu as much as I ought to be. But like, I feel like did it get better than this for the guy? I mean, this was incredible.
Akira Ishida has had so many memorable roles over the years, but I don't think that anybody that has acted in this show has been in anything quite like this. Mostly because I just genuinely don't think that there has been an anime that has so unleashed the true dramatic potential of anime Seiyu, because it's just like that's not usually what their job is.
Yeah,
you
that's a
know,
great
it's
point.
like they're not theater actors like they are in this show. It's the grand melodrama and the what they're calling on them to do in this show is so different than modern, what modern anime often will ask a character to do. I mean, I can name plenty of Akira Ishida roles that have that have made me laugh on the floor crying. Like he plays Katsura in Gintama, and he's so funny in that role, but I can't really, and I know he's played roles of incredibly fantastic drama over his years, but I mean, he was fucking Kworu Nagisa. Like,
oh wow, wow,
he's an iconic. Yeah, he's voiced some iconic
holy cow
characters. Yeah, I mean, Akira Ishida has voiced many iconic characters, and Megumi Hayashibara was also Rei Ayanami, and, and Koichi Yamadera is Spike Spiegel. So it's like, we have some incredibly gifted seiyuu in the show, but even in the best works that they've been in, I don't think that we've ever seen them truly unleashed like they are in this show. I mean, it's just, it's a different thing entirely. It's like a different species. It's like trying to compare a tiger to a house cat. It's like, their talents are unleashed in many ways, but I don't think that we've really ever seen something quite like this in an anime. And if we have, it's been a very long time and I don't know about it.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
It's truly insane.
It's so important.
Yeah,
I agree. I think for that reason, for all the reasons we talked about, it's an incredibly important piece of art. So,
and I have to say that I don't think, I think the idea that voice actors would be uniquely suited to performing Rakugo is undercovered when people talk about this show, because Rakugo so often is about vocal performance and doing character voices.
Yeah,
that there's no one better if you're just talking about simply from a vocal perspective, which, if we're talking, this is an anime, so they're not responsible for physical performance. Voice actors are perfectly suited for this type of thing. So, I think it's really interesting that that's, an aspect of this show's immense success when it comes to voice acting is, this idea that voice actors are actually, you wouldn't think about it, but they're really well suited to doing this sort of thing. So
maybe this is why it's an anime, right? Maybe this is one of the big
it's possible.
factors.
It's certainly possible. I mean, if I was the creator of that manga, I certainly would want people like Akira Ishida doing the Rakugo in my stories, because I mean, my God, I can't imagine any live action actor imbuing their vocal performance with that level of just perfection, basically. I mean, there's no other way to say it.
And what a pull to get Megumi, right? I mean,
probably
the most famous. I feel like over here she's the most famous anime voice actress. Is that a stretch?
She is in Japan is easily one of, if not the most famous voice actresses. I mean, she's a, other than like Maya Sakamoto, who is arguably as famous for her pop music career as she is as a voice actress. I think in terms of just purely voice acting, there really isn't anybody in Japan of the female persuasion that is more revered than Megumi Hayashibara, and she is literally, just by sheer numbers, the most prolific voice actress in Japanese history. She's voiced more characters than anybody else, and she's been in high demand for 20-25 years. So and has only stopped being in demand because she has retired. This is one of her final big roles. So but yeah, no, she is a a literal goddess at this point. Like she is rightfully revered because she is just of a rare not to use this term too much during this podcast, but is a true generational talent for sure.
Totally.
So
well, I mean, any other Rakugo Shinju thoughts?
I think I've pretty much extended every hyperbole I possibly could about this show. I can't say enough good about it. It is truly just a magnificent piece of art. which is
It really is. I mean,
rarely say that about anime, that it is art, but it is. I mean, all anime is art, just by purview of the definition of art.
yes.
And I certainly don't want to cheapen anime
No.
in any way, but this is a work of true cultural value, I feel like.
Yeah, and it just has a different purpose, I think.
It hits different.
It hit different.
Rakugo Shinju hits different.
It does. It does. Because it's you threw me off my game. No,
that's all I can think of as soon as you.
It's good.
Said that,
it's good. It has these different aims, like you said, to be, I think, sort of more than a vehicle for merchandise, or more than, well, maybe more than is. I don't want, again, like you said, I don't want to unfairly kind of deride anime who are equal parts art and product, but like,
well,
this is not really
we have
a product.
To understand, the cold-hearted capitalism that goes into making anime. Nobody is making an anime. Almost nobody is making an anime because they aren't wanting to make money off of it. I mean, even Rakugo Shinju was made to sell the manga. That's why anime are made.
Yeah, it's true.
But it's clear that the people that were put in the position to actually make the anime here, not the financial backers, not the production committee, but like the people, the boots on the ground, cared for this source material enough to make it essentially perfect. I mean, it's thankfully, talent has a lot to do with that. But I think, everybody says that you can't really be good at something without also liking it, or it's really easy to be good at something if you also like it. And you could really tell the love and the appreciation for the source material that the creators of the show had, because it's really, it's just about as good of an adaptation of source material I could ever hope for. So. I don't know if I'm supposed to be feeling dead air right now or not. Hello, everybody in the chat. I don't know what you're saying. I don't know if I was supposed to be feeling dead air there or not.
Oh, it's good. I muted the stream, so only you were allowed to hear.
Okay.
Only you were allowed to hear the loveliness.
When you go back to edit this, you'll hear me frantically whispering, "Oh, I don't know if I'm supposed to be feeling dead air here or not."
Sorry, impromptu colleague poking head in office saying,
"Oh, no
the building
worries.
is closing."
No worries.
So yeah, we're all good.
Okay.
Blue Sea in chat says, no, yeah, totally. Blue Sea says Megumi is Faye Valentine in Cowboy Bebop, so she's worked with the Sukaroku Seiyu before. Totally. I think
she has worked with both of them before, I want to say.
Oh, that's cool.
Because they're also both very
prolific, right?
They're all very prolific Seiyu,
So she will always and forever be Lena Inverse to me, first and foremost. Like, that was my introduction to her.
Another just earth-shatteringly important role on the long line of very important roles that she has had over the...
I am flattered on behalf of the Slayers that you would... but important for her, for sure. No doubt.
I would say pretty important in 90s anime history. Slayers does not get its due nowadays, like a lot of 90s anime, but...
Fuck yeah, dude.
Slayers is... I would say Slayers is on the level of Tenchi Muyo, but people don't remember it as much.
Which
is disappointing.
Slayers pod. Let's do it.
I have an original Slayers Next animation cell, actually, that I got for a video that I have not made yet, but it is a good... Actually, hold on. I'll go grab it. Hold on.
Marc jaunting off to grab the animation cell. This is me providing for the podcast piece of this if this ends up getting left in the podcast. And he's back. He's approaching the
I
microphone.
forgot I also had the Genga for it.
Ooh.
But I don't know who these. I can't remember who these characters are. But
oh my god!
Slayer's Next.
Oh,
That's an original Slayer's Next animation cell.
I should remember her name. The green swirl-haired lady.
Original Genga for it, and then as a bonus,
she's such a troublemaker.
Here's the Genga from Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust.
Ooh, this guy. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is crazy cheap to get animation cells and Genga off of eBay. I think this cost me about $40 all told.
Wow. That rules.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. I mean, they're no like Spirit Bomb, like $1.5 million, Goku animation cells, but they will be useful for whenever I get around to making a video about animation every once in a while.
Yes. Yes.
Anyway, sorry about that distraction.
No, that was fun.
To show off my animation.
I'm super happy. Any reason to talk about Slayers, I'm totally here for, because it's a show that again, like, you use the word important. I will also use the word important about it. It's a very personally important show to me, which is probably weird some people out that I would say that, but it's means a lot to me.
I don't know why it is not more fondly remembered with the bigger anime of the 90s. I don't know. It's weird that it hasn't survived as much here. I think it is still very fondly remembered in Japan, but
still light novels being made, aren't there?
I don't know. That's a good question, but if I wouldn't be surprised.
I think so. Well, I say still as in it's been continuously going on. I think there was a break, but I think there is a relatively new one.
Wow.
That has come out. But my guess, not to go off on too big of a tangent here, but I have a theory about this, and that is that back when the Slayers' heyday over here, which of course was a delay from Japan, so this would be late 90s, early aughts, whenever Slayers was getting popular here. My theory is that this was pre-social media, I think, like, maybe some gatekeepers, so to speak, some very important voices, critical voices in the Western industry in terms of like covering anime, reviews, etc. Sort of opinions, tastemakers. Though I think a lot of those folks were down on Slayers. And so I think that was like the first step in pushing it out of like cultural consciousness.
Yeah.
That's my theory.
That makes sense. Gatekeepers will gatekeep.
No doubt.
They like to do that. Anyways,
well, this has...
Sorry for starting that.
No, I'm always happy to talk about this show, seriously. Well, I guess, so now it falls to me to conclude things. This has been Warui Deshou's Deshou the Third, our third anime series that we're covering per season. Rakugo Season 1 is done. We move along to Rakugo Season 2 for next time. Super pumped about that. Shadon, in all likelihood, will be back for that one. I want to, first of all, thank our patrons. Thank you so much for the support that you always show us, and for the fun times in the Discord, et cetera, et cetera. And if you are listening to this on the free, and you would like to be part of our community or just support us financially, which you certainly don't have to do. I mean, God knows it's trying times these days, but if you are so inclined, you can head over to patreon.com/WARUIDESHOU. That's patreon.com/waruideshou. There are 3 budget-friendly tiers, from $2 to $5. $5 a month gets you everything that we make, all pods, all extras, all access. You can look at the $2 and $3 list of rewards if those suit your budget better. But yeah, head over there and see if there's anything that tickles your fancy. But then, of course, if you cannot support us that way, all good. You are valid. We love you. But you would like to still do your part. You can always subscribe to us on YouTube, Twitch, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Twitter. Share our stuff, like our stuff. Give us ratings and reviews on the Apple Podcast app. That will increase our discoverability. And clicking all the thumbs ups and the bells and everything helps us on YouTube. So with my shilling out of the way, I will now turn the floor over to Marc to once again give a quick plug for his work, since he has definitely impressed you. I know. I can feel it. He has impressed you all over the course of this pod.
Well, onoanime.moe or onoanime.com. That's basically all you need to know. That's where all of our links live. There's a lot of them there. So if you're interested in just about any possible facet of anime culture or Japanese culture in some ways, we've probably covered it at one point. And I think we're mostly active YouTube, and my personal Twitter is where we're mostly active nowadays. But my personal Twitter is on there as well, so you'll have no trouble finding that. A
top username, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Vermillionaire is a fantastic username.
Thank you so much. About 385 other people agree with you. And that number is dwindling daily. Just as it should be.
Oh boy. All the better.
That's in my opinion, that's how you know you're doing well on Twitter. If you're constantly losing followers, and then you get like a really big bump at some point because you have a viral tweet. Right. And then you slowly start losing them again. That's how you know. That's how you know you're doing well on Twitter.
Yes, the leaky bottle that is Twitter following.
Exactly.
But yeah, so he's at Vermillionaire with a 3 at the end. I am at the Subtle Doctor on Twitter. And it has been a pleasure, Marcos, doing this with you. This has been a treat. As always, I cannot thank you enough for filling in for Shadon, who was not able to be here. This is infinitely better with 2 people than just me talking or something like that. Right. And all your insight and eloquence and knowledge, just fantastic time, and your contribution is always much, much appreciated.
I appreciate that. Those are very, very kind words, and it's always so fun to come on. I mean, it's a pleasure. And I don't get to guest on very many podcasts nowadays, so it's a privilege and a pleasure and an honor. I don't know.
I'll take it.
I've been doing really good with hyperbole this episode, so I'll just say it's the honor of my lifetime. I've never known a greater pleasure.
Oh my,
physical or mental.
Excellent.
Yeah,
check that one
in
off.
In all seriousness, thank you so much, and I will. I'll be waiting for the next call.
Well, our folks love having you as much as we do, so you will be getting that call because you make us smarter, and we always appreciate that.
That is very good to know that my 4 years of Bachelor of Arts in religion did not go to waste.
Oh man, you've said that before, but then I forget that we should talk about our college degree sometime.
That'll be a whole podcast.
That would be so.
That'll be another 3 hours that people can bang their heads against a wall against.
Oh man. Yeah, I had a minor in religion, almost a major, but I went the humanities route and minored in politics and religion. So,
oh my Lord.
Yeah. And I use them every single day. I don't.
Yeah.
But we should deep dive on that sometime. But
Oh, yeah.
let's get out of here. Let's let the patrons and everyone get out of here, and I will sign off as we usually do and say, as Ranka iconically says in Macross Frontier, embrace each other, everyone, to the ends of the universe. Good night.
Yak to culture.